And we're live.
Yay. Hello, everyone. If you're watching, I'm assuming some people watch this that aren't in the Hangout from time to time. We are here for the Land Down Under Hangout read for the month of May, which is ostensibly my pick. However, I feel that I really share this with Kirsten because she was the one who said, you should pick this for your pick.
You didn't have to listen to me.
I didn't have to, but it would be an unwise decision not to. So our book for this month was The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Kowal.
Wait, someone actually has a physical version of a book?
I'd have a physical book.
I do too.
Yes,
Whoa.
it's got a nice
That
cover.
hasn't happened in a while.
They still
got a
make
very
physical
hidden-
books?
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Quite a-
two boxes that someone's husband just bought in wasn't a giveaway at all.
Sorry
this
for
cover.
interrupting.
That's all right. I like this cover. It's got quite a Hidden Figures-ish vibe to the artwork there. And we actually have a follow-up hangout for those who are going to read it, I think, in July or end of June. June for book number 2, which I also just picked up today.
Ooh.
The Fated Sky. There we go. But we're not talking about that one tonight. We're just talking about this one. So usually the way we go is we'll have a little discussion about our general feelings, and then we might get into some discussion points. What are you finding funny, Sarah?
Then we're going to discuss our general feelings.
Okay.
Because when don't we do that?
General feelings. All right.
I mean, just general.
So I'll start, and then I'll work my way through the list from left to right. So I finished this book a couple of days ago, I think 2 days ago. I gave it a 4 out of 5. Now, I don't rate my books based on what I think is quality. It's just about how much I enjoy them. So this is a 4 out of 5. 5 for me would have been more rockets, more space stuff. Because I'm a space nerd and I really enjoy that stuff. So, and maybe a little more plot tension for me as well. So those probably would have pushed it to a 5 for me. But otherwise, I really enjoyed reading this book. I think the author does a very good job of writing characters. I don't have any other particular feels about it other than just I also like alternate histories. I think that's a really interesting thing, and it's something I like reading a lot of. Yeah, and just generally I enjoyed it. So nothing further to really talk about at this juncture. But I know we're going to get into some stuff later. So next on my list from here is Mel.
Okay. So I read this book when it came out. I loved it. It's amazing. It's so cool. So much so that I did the audiobook because when it's Mary Robinette Kowal, I always do the audiobook because she's very, very good. I then promptly ordered from my library and told them they had to buy it, even though I'd read it. And I was like, no, you guys need to put this on the shelf. So I ordered it from them. Hence, I have a physical copy, even though it's not actually mine. It's the library's copy. Yeah.
You're doing a bit for the community, Mel. I love that. You're thinking of your fellow readers.
That's it. I'm like, you know what? They need help curating. I will do that for them. So, yeah, I promptly ordered that from them. Loved it for a lot of different reasons, which I'm sure we'll get into. But, yeah, I gave it a 5 out of 5 because for me, a 4 out of 5 is an excellent book, but a 5 out of 5 is a book that I just enjoyed, basically.
Yep.
And that's what this was for me.
Very good. I was also going to mention that there was some not very well made plans, I think, to try and have a coordinated cocktail event happening during this. I know we've got is that a martini?
That is a martini.
Very good.
And I'd just like to point out, it's a double martini.
Make mine a double.
Make mine a double. So I did keeping. I've also had many espresso martinis. I apologise to anyone watching this at a later date.
Very nice. We have a distinct lack of vermouth in the house, so martinis were not on the menu for tonight. I do, however, have a space-themed beer called Hello Humanoid.
I love it.
There we go.
Double. It's a double IPA.
It is. It's a double
so
IPA.
It's a double.
So There you go.
I'm just having sparkling wine because I didn't want to have a martini anyway. Because I don't like.
Anyone else sharing any interesting drinks before we move on?
No, I'm just drinking Coke.
Very good. Speaking
You know,
of
it's the
which,
real thing.
not Coke, but you guys are next, Amy and Karina.
Oh, cool. That's good because I wanted to say something that follows on from what you said, and I'm like, keep it in your head, keep it in your head. Don't forget what you said. So I gave this a 4 because I disliked the first hour
Yeah, you said it was
and
an
the
hour.
last hour. I really enjoyed the middle of the book. Like really, really enjoyed, sped through it really quickly. The first hour of it to me was just a little bit dark than I wanted it to be, and I had fully expected the rest of the book to be that way, which
You
is
talk
why
about
sort of,
all like the disaster type stuff
Yeah.
happening.
What's happened? It's all gone on.
After the meteorite hit Earth and them surviving and all of that, it was really, really heavy and really depressing. And I understand that needed to happen now in retrospect, but it was a very heavy way to start a book. And it definitely made it difficult for me to get into. But once I got into it, I really enjoyed it. I loved the characters. I really enjoyed a lot of the same reasons that I enjoyed Hidden Figures. But where Matt says he could have used more rockets and more space, that's where it lost me in the last hour, the rockets and the space. And I was
I really got off on that stuff.
I don't care about this. This is not my thing. So once we got to that point, I was like, cool. We got to the point. Yay. But I kind of probably tuned out for like the last hour of it. But otherwise, really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
So
Amy.
Gnomes.
I enjoyed it in the fact that it was like a good story to listen to, but also I'm a bit meh on it. I'm like, mostly because of the time it's based and all the racism and the segregation and all that sort of stuff. And I was just like, I don't want this. It needs to be gone. Like, I just wanted to smack Parker in the face every time he opened his mouth, even when he was being nice, because I was like, no, you're a butthead and you need to go away. I don't like you. So that brought it down. Like, I know I haven't quite finished it yet. I've got 45 minutes left.
Mhm.
But
Don't worry, Karina hated the last hour. You're fine.
I figured that, like, from that I have a fairly good thing. And I mean, it's still a good story, and I'm still going to read the second book, I believe. So, I mean, I would give it a 3. Like, I'm going to finish it, obviously, but to me, it's a 3, not a 4 for me. But only because the story wasn't for me. Like, it's a good story, and, like, I can understand why all you guys are giving it 4 and 5. Like, it's a great story, and it's really well put together. It's just that I don't like history, like that portion of history, because I find it very... I'm very glad that it's gone, because I'm a very violent person when it comes to meeting people who are really sexist and racist. And I spent a lot of the time going, do we have to? Do we have to do this? Do we have to do more of this? Can we get rid of this? Aren't we done with this? So yes, it was good, but there were bits of it that wasn't for me, and that's why I would give it a 3.
Very good. All right. We will move on. We've got Elizabeth up next.
Hi.
Hey.
I mostly enjoyed it overall. I actually felt it was a bit more of a plot-driven book than a character-driven book, even though some of the character interactions were really quite good. It still was very focused on where it wanted to go, rather than kind of doing a deep job of developing those relationships. And I think people have commented on the tension there. So it reminded me a bit of Everfair by Nisi Shaw, which was an alternate history about the Congo gaining independence from
Belgium?
French?
Belgium, that's right.
Belgium.
Yeah. And so it reminded me a bit of that. Like, it's more focused on the big picture rather than than being character driven, I suppose.
Mhm.
So in that sense, I was a bit not as engaged in it, but I still found it a pretty good story.
Excellent. Cool. Thank you. G, have you actually read or listened or anything?
Yes, I finished it
You
about
finished it?
an hour ago. So
Awesome. Cool.
yeah.
All right.
I did the audiobook. Yeah, I wasn't a fan. To have all of the same reasons that Naomi said. I'm not a fan of historical fiction, so that was my first kind of block in the enjoyment straight away, and a lot of it was a constant reminder of that. And I thought at the beginning for a while, I really loved the beginning, actually. I loved the action straight up off the bat, and I was blown away straight away. Like, I did not expect that the very first chapter, and I thought, yeah, this is going to be great. And then it wasn't so great for me. I didn't enjoy a lot of the characters. I felt a lot of the characters were fairly flat. I'm wondering if it's because I listened to the audiobook and because I didn't enjoy the narrator's voice for the main character because of that 50s, oh, darling, tone that she had the whole way through. And every time I heard her, I grit my teeth.
I feel like that might be part of your problem then.
Oh, yeah.
Like, hating
Like
the
a
sound
large-
of the main character's voice in an audiobook probably will just take you for the whole entire story.
I know the author was doing that on purpose. Like, a lot of the time it was a put on play by the character as well, but that just frustrated me even more. I had lots of problems with that. And like, Luke got in the car at one stage when I had it going, and I was just making fun of the character's voice the whole way through it instead of listening to the story. Because I felt like I didn't have to listen to the story either. And I wasn't phased if I wasn't going to finish it in time for this hangout. I think I gave it 3 stars, and I think I was generous. But I can see why some of you will like it. So.
All right. Kirsten.
I'm with Mel. I really enjoyed it, and I think I'm probably going to do that thing that I always do, where I'm like, I really liked this, and then we start talking about it, and you guys say stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was the thing that I didn't like, and that was the thing that I didn't like. And I guess it's one of those things where I enjoyed most of it as a whole, that the little things I overlooked. And I do enjoy historical fiction, and I do enjoy this kind of, like, I guess like all the sexism and the racism and stuff I could deal with, because I was waiting for those characters to get like their comeuppance, and that was my, like, why I kept on wanting to read more and more and more. And I'm like, God damn it, I can't wait for something bad to happen to these people. And that, I guess, was part of it, this whole like vicarious thing of, there's a particular scene that I really enjoyed that I'll get into later. But yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I get what you're saying, G, about the audio, but I quite enjoyed the audio book. But I think that the voice that she was doing, I could see that she was kind of doing that on purpose to just be sarcastic. But I liked that, like, none of the other characters realised that she was being sarcastic. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent already, but I just really enjoyed it. So, and I was very, very, very good, because I wanted to listen to the second one straight away as I finished this one, and I made myself not do that because I can't seem to help myself from doing spoilers, because I forget which one things happened in.
Because it all does this.
Yeah, it just melds together in my head, and then I start saying something and then realise, oh crap, I can't say that yet. So I deliberately didn't even listen to the second one, even though I'd already downloaded it on Audible. So I had a lot of self-control there, because I really did want to listen to the other one straight away, because that's what I did with all those Bob books, because I was like, oh, that was so good, I need to listen to the next one.
I think it's a bit unusual, this series, in a way. Sarah, I'll get to in just a sec. That this book is not the first written book in the series, that there was a book 4.5 written probably a year or 2 years, I think, before this was actually done. 2 years, yeah.
Yep. Is it one? No, it didn't win the Hugo, but it was up for the Hugo.
Yeah. So, which I haven't read. I opted to read them in their chronologically occurring order rather than their chronologically published order. So even though it's been out for a while, I also opted not to read anything else and just go through the series. Which means, I guess, since I don't think number 3 is out, it'll be some time till I get to that one.
So maybe we'll reach the future sometime.
Yeah, maybe.
That's what I was expecting to happen. Sorry to interrupt again.
No.
So.
She's publishing 2 more books in this series, which will happen before the novelette that she wrote.
Yes. Yeah. It's like 4.5 in the series.
Yeah.
Cool.
But they're not coming out till 2020.
It's only next year.
I know, but just letting people know.
2020 seems so long away.
It's the future.
Literally.
All right. Sorry for
The
that
future is now.
slight tangent. Sarah, you're up.
I would give it 3.5 stars, but I had a choice between 4 and 3, and I went with 3. I enjoyed this. I think maybe it was Elizabeth, just said it was plot driven, not character driven. I think that's what drove me a little bit up the wall. Anyone who's watching GOT this season would probably feel similarly to that.
Yeah.
That it's all plot driven, not character driven. So I enjoyed it, but it was also, I was very aware, and I think I'm interested to hear from G as well. I was very aware of a perspective from someone who is from a culture who is other, commenting on those and trying to write from a perspective or see others' perspective that is other. And I enjoyed that, but I also feel we didn't delve deep enough on that. Yeah, I think, I don't know, there was just things that really frustrated me, and a lot of it has to do with perfect characters, and we'll get into that into a minute, where I was just like, these people did not exist now. They certainly did not exist in the 50s. So why are you writing them as such? And actually there was opportunity for character development around that, and she didn't take that opportunity. And the final thing is I really enjoyed her narrative, but she cannot do a Scottish accent to save her life. It somehow was Irish that I was like, what the hell is this? Who is this doctor? And that then to that point, then I'm not sure how her accents were with elsewhere, because I read some of the reviews and there were other points about other cultures' accents that they felt weren't on point. So that was interesting. But overall, I do think, though, she's an amazing narrative a narrator, and I am so glad I opted to do the audiobook. So it'll be interesting, to see what people think. But yeah, for me, it was like, I guess to caveat what my stars are, 5 is I tell everybody they have to read it and I shake them by the shoulders. That's how I feel like when I find someone who loves things, I'm like, you need to read the Spawn series, or you need to read that, or the Silo series. That's one of the ones that I'm always on about. But this was like, look, maybe are you into sci-fi, into this, it's not perfect in either direction, but it's there. I totally get where Karina's coming from the beginning bit, but I enjoyed the setup around that apocalyptic event. I did enjoy that, but then I like apocalyptic sci-fi. So
I enjoyed that too, Sarah. I was like, this is going to be great, and then they kind of petered out that side.
It just kind of went, and then they got to the base, and then sexism kicked in. So I was like, so there was a bit of that. So I enjoyed that, but I can also completely hear Karina's point around that of going, this was actually not particularly, like, I actually can see her perspective on that, and I can actually also go, it wasn't the best setup. So yeah. And the last hour, I think it was just a feedback before we move forward. I felt it went from the setup of the meeting to her going into space way too fast. So I'm interested to see what others think about that. So yeah, I was also like, there was a whole lot of setup between her going, you're going in, to you're going on your launch that I thought it would have been interesting. So yeah.
Actually, even though I disliked that last hour, I completely agree with you, because looking at the timer on how much I had left to read of the book, I was like, oh, so obviously she's not going to space in this book, and then blam, she went into space.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I felt about it, because you're given such great narrative around like all the different tests they had to do, which I really enjoyed, right? And her pointing out that we're in swimsuits, it makes it easier because they're not treating it as being real. And then to suddenly go and launch, I'm like, there would have been a whole lot of stuff. I'm interested in that journey. I'm interested in when you went from approval to launch. What was that like?
45 minutes left, and they still haven't been like, you're going into space.
No, they won't.
Yeah,
Not yet.
they won't. It won't be. It's like 10 minutes, 20 minutes. It's nothing.
I said to Karina, so CliffNotes version, does she go to space? And Karina's like, yes. I'm like, okay.
Yes.
I don't know what else to say about the end of the book.
It was like when Matt was talking about it, he was like, I wish there was just more space. And I was like, did I tell him that she doesn't even go into space until the last, like, 5 minutes of the book?
I have to say, like, all the rocketry stuff, that was probably the best stuff, I thought. All the sciencey maths. I wish there was more math. How weird is that?
I loved the group when they were working together on the problem of how they got the guys from the shuttle to the station. I love that scene. Anyway, Matt, you're driving this. Go for it.
No, that's all right. I was just going to say, had I not known in advance that there was more books coming, that this was a series and it wasn't just going to end, I probably would have done a bit of a rage quit there at the end. It's like, what?
Can I just point out something around how this was released? The second book was released only 1 month after the first book came out.
Which, again, if you knew that was the plan, you could temper your expectations. But if you just like picked it up in a store and didn't know, I'd be like, what? Okay.
Yeah. But because I knew there was a second one, I'm going, okay, I actually give it a little bit more. I'm frustrated by the ending because I wanted to know more about the setup, because I'm like, okay, if that's what it is, and I know there's a second book. But yeah, I totally get it, right? I know there's a second book. If you didn't,
it's frustrating.
All right. Well, that's everyone's general thoughts. So good night, everyone.
And a few extras.
I want to talk about the elephant in the room first before we sort of do a bit more, and that's about all the rocket launches.
Oh my god!
Which ones?
The ones that don't involve actual rockets.
I thought she did that really great as well. So much space and rocket themed innuendo. I was like, yes. It was so out of place with the rest of it, though.
I have a note. Can I read you what it says? It says the first. Oh, hang on. Where is it? Sorry, I went to a second one. Oh, that's the absolute miracle thing. Where'd it go? Okay, go back to other people. Apparently, it's recently deleted because that's how I feel about it. I said at first the double entendre for the sexy times was cute, but it got a bit much by sex scene 7. I was cringing. Rocket launch at home. Launch confirmed. Where I go. Oh! I remember walking through the park because I have to walk through a park on my way to work. And she was like, and I was literally going, can I fast forward through this? But I'm rolling my eyes walking to work going, can I just like, because I'm like, this is why other people's sex lives are not actually what you want to know about.
No,
like,
I don't want to know. That's exactly right though, because I was like, I didn't actually hate that part of the book because I was just like, other people are weird. Like,
I would be real happy with just a fake.
and I just kind of accepted it as like, this is their weird couple thing that I'm not getting, but it's working for both of them, so fine.
Yeah, but we got it the first time, maybe the second time. By time 7, we're like, dude, we get it. You love your rocket launches and you love to use double entendre because it's the 50s. For fuck's sake, we don't need to be told every time. Sorry, G, what did you say?
Just in case you forgot, the book's about rockets.
Well,
you want to feel my Rocket baby.
Coming into landing.
The bit that got me is when she says this quote. She's going, "Oh, Nathaniel and I are going to have such a good rocket launch." I'm like, bleh! Like I actually did that, and I was listening at work. I'm like, bleh! Like if someone went, "What's up with you?" I'm like, "Sorry, audio book."
See, I quite liked it, but mostly because, like, I get that it was totally cheesy and over the top. Like, get that, but I'm like, that's what real couples are like, and I like the fact that this was a real mature couple depiction.
I totally don't disagree, but I don't need to know about it all the time.
Well, Sarah,
No,
just think.
I would have been really happy with fade to blacks. After like time 2, I don't need to know every time you're talking about each other's rocket and launching off and just fade to black. It's okay. I'll film the rest of myself.
It was like your parents having sex, right? You're going, I know what's happening. I don't need to know everything, right?
It was a fade to black anyway. Like,
there wasn't really a lot of description.
It could have faded to black a lot sooner.
They could have taken it a lot further.
Yeah.
Sarah,
now
comment
reaching, re-entry something or other.
Jesus Christ, Matt's like, it could have been worse. I'm here to do your risk assessment. It could have been worse.
Sarah, your comment about
re-entering the
Get away from me, weirdo.
Sorry, Kirsten, what were you saying?
I was just going to say that thing about it being like your parents having sex. That's why I can't read fan fiction that's got too much sex in it, because if it's characters that I've known, I can't read Harry Potter fan fiction that's sexy.
It's probably coming out of the authors.
Because it's like, no, I can't. It's like watching people I actually know, and I can't handle it. I tried reading some X-Files stuff, and I love the X-Files, and I was like, no, I can't handle it.
No, I agree. Like, I even found rereading, Harry and Ginny getting to, like, having kisses. I'm like, JK, you better cut this off at the right time, because these are 16-year-olds, and I don't like. Okay, good, we're out of it. Thank God. Anyway, sorry, Matt, to take over. The sex innuendo was just. I don't know. Maybe it's the 50s. I don't know.
Spectacular.
Matt, you should say what you told me earlier.
Oh yeah. So I thought it was probably quite realistic for a couple that were both involved in a space program to launch rockets into space. It's a shared thing that they have. It's the 50s, and although they're both very progressive characters for their time, perhaps unbelievably progressive for their time, it still seems like sex is something that's a little bit not talked about as openly, and this is kind of like their little way of talking about it without feeling as vulnerable or exposed about using, more actual
adult words
to describe things. It might be their way of being a bit more comfortable with it.
Yeah. I totally get it, but at the same time, I got it the first 3 times. I didn't need to get it 7 times, right? It was that.
I know that you said that, like, it was like reading a fanfic, like that's why you can't read fanfic. I love fanfic. I read the dirtiest fanfic there is. This is nothing like fanfic. Like, I get, like, this was just like.
Can I just remind you, Naomi, we're doing Chuck Tingle next week. It's going to be great.
Chuck Tingle next week.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, like, the thing is, like, the problem wasn't that it was a sex scene. Like, I don't usually have a problem reading a sex scene. The problem was that it was just so nauseating and cheesy. And I just
there was no actual sex.
Not cheesy.
Yeah. No.
It wasn't cheesy in a good way, though. Like, it just felt forced. Like, everything else was, like, so Southern Belle and so prim and proper. And then she's, like,
I felt
in the bedroom.
Agreed. I felt like we were intruding. And this is what I meant. Like, I get that this is your thing, but I feel now I'm intruding on someone else's. Like, I felt like
I was watching a good friend have sex through the window.
Exactly. And that's boom. That was it. It was like, oh, it's excited the first time, and then by maybe, I don't know, you're like, I don't know how, and then you're like, okay, this is your thing. This is just weird. This is weird. Look away.
These are characters that I like find sexy together kind of thing. Like it's not like reading a book that is written for sexy times, but reading their sex scenes were more like, oh, I feel like I'm a voyeur in your home and I don't want this anymore and I need it to stop.
That's exactly how I felt.
And I know that's because she just made it sort of authentic feeling. Like it felt like it was just two human beings being together.
But because it was in that time frame, I felt kind of like I was watching my grandmother have sex back when she was young. Which I know she did and go grandma, but I don't want to know about it, right?
You just want to convince yourself that people just didn't used to have sex back then.
Exactly.
Well, it was very perfunctory. Okay. It was all very perfunctory. Like there was no like innuendo, and they didn't enjoy themselves.
No,
it was fun.
It just felt very like, it felt like I was a voyeur, and it felt uncomfortable. Yes. Like it wasn't a sex scene for having a sex scene and like exciting the reader for a sex scene. It was a sex scene for the reader to be like, oh, this is a normal couple that's having a sex scene, but I just don't need it.
I don't need to know about it, and you keep drawing it out. Like
I would have been happier with more talk about the math and the flying planes and the trying to get rid of segregation and like even stuff that I didn't super enjoy. I would have enjoyed that more than the sex scene that I did need.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be having sex, but I didn't need to be a voyeur in their home.
Yeah, agreed.
Next question.
Yeah, let's go. Let's move on. We've spent a lot of time about the double entendre, which if anyone goes onto Goodreads and looks at the lower ratings, is a lot of people bitching about that. So just saying. Matt, where do you want to go?
Well, I don't really have a particularly set list of things to talk about. So if anyone has any particular things they'd like to bring up or discuss now, please feel free. And if not, I'll start picking some stuff. I don't see anyone with their hands up, so I will just move on to...
I have a list.
Let's work on your list, because it's user-generated.
Part of it is about character. I would like to talk about Nathaniel, the husband.
What husband? Oh, sorry.
What husband? Sorry, was it
I
a
think
joke?
he's like the ultimate husband.
Yeah, and that was my problem. I have a note in here saying, is Nathaniel just a little too perfect as a husband? And the whole thing when he thought she was pregnant and then she's not, and there was not a discussion about whether they were going to have a family or not. In some ways, I was like, that's really progressive, but that's also not a conversation that wouldn't happen in the 50s.
She seemed to be of an age where at that time frame she would have been having kids, and it seemed weird that there wasn't even a conversation about her having kids. Like
it happens in the next book.
Oh, you're not pregnant. That's fine. You know.
But it just seemed weird that they thought.
Sorry, it's pretty much the first chapter, though. It's like.
See, I kind of assumed that their conversation around children had happened before. And then she got all invested in wanting to be an astronaut anyway, and he just sort of put it on the back burner. What did surprise me was that she didn't have other people asking her when she's having kids, because that's all I get all day.
Especially in the 50s, it's an assumption, right? And I think the other thing is, if you're going to share your frickin' sexual life, why wouldn't you be sharing this conversation in your narrative?
Yeah,
right?
like why would
that was my issue with it.
Single older woman who would come to her and be like, so when are you starting about having kids?
Yeah, you can't leave it too long. Yeah,
or even the men who didn't want her to be an astronaut in the first place saying, well, you'll have kids soon anyway, it's not a problem.
There was no mention of having children in space either. There was mention of them being romance in space, but no like pregnancy in space. And like the one thing that you could actually possibly say might go wrong in space, you haven't mentioned at all.
No, they did. There was a point where she was like, do you know where babies come from? Because someone said to her, why do you need women in space? And she was like, well, we want to build a colony. And they were like, yeah, so why do you need women? And she was like, do you understand where babies come from? There was actually a line where she said something like that.
Framed around colonizing. It wasn't about
that's right, not in space, but
being pregnant and putting stress on your body.
Okay.
Yeah, and in fairness to a discussion that happened in one of the IM chats, but I think Matt and Mel might have been having it in regards to a Bradbury novel. I think Mel was saying like what was going on Mars isn't true because of scientific understanding. I think we have to, I'm telling myself this as well, I have to be fair to the novel that at the set, they don't know what the effects of anti-gravity are, like of having zero gravity are on the human body, and that a pregnancy isn't viable in zero gravity. So they don't know that yet. So I think in fairness, I need to remember that going like in this situation. They don't know that. They haven't done these scientific experiments on animals at this point.
And it's actually worth mentioning at this point, since the Martian Chronicles have actually come up, she was actually significantly influenced by the Martian Chronicles to the point where most of the characters were named after characters from the Martian Chronicles. There is literally a Nathaniel York in the Martian Chronicles.
No,
I'm not kidding. He's the first Earth person to get to Mars.
Interesting.
There is some in the physical copy. There is about a dozen or so pages of acknowledgements and historical notes that do kind of talk about where she got a bunch of inspiration from, real life or otherwise.
So, and that's a really important thing to note too. She actually based, especially Elma York, on particular people from history. So it's not like she just came out of the blue. They're literally based on people in terms of their skill sets and things along those lines.
Yeah. I when Matt showed that to me, which was only like this morning, I think it was, or yesterday, I was like, that's one thing I like. The audiobook definitely didn't have it because I remember it went through the whole thank you for listening. And normally that's the kind of stuff I don't bother with, but for this book I would have actually been interested to read it. And
she talks about it a lot on Twitter, and she's got really close ties to a lot of the Australian female astronauts, and has been doing a lot of interviews and work with them, and continues to have close ties with them. So she's known for this in terms of her writing. She does her research like intensely comparatively to majority of writers out there.
Yeah, I guess the thing we're coming back to is, though, if we were going to be privy to rocket launches, then possibly we should have been privy to those discussions that we're assuming they're having, but I don't know.
But I think that's the thing. Like a lot of the time, like the whole book is from Elma's perspective. It's what she was privy to.
But the discussion with her husband, with Nathaniel around family.
Or even just
she explicitly says she doesn't have that discussion with him, and they haven't actually gotten to that point.
But even just like they must asking her when she's going to have kids, like that's something that happens even now.
Exactly.
And there was not a single person at any point through the story that was like, "Oh, when are you going to settle down and start a family?"
Yeah. And what about also if they're going to describe a rocket launch? Then there's like, well, are they using some kind of contraception, which was not readily available in the 50s either? And it
was available to married people, admittedly. I mean, I'm basing all my knowledge on married.
But she hasn't mentioned whether she's on it though. Like if she's been using some kind of contraception.
I think it was called withdrawal. Was particular.
But there was. No,
but what
sorry,
what I mean is, if they're using any kind of contraception, even if it's the withdrawal method or condoms, or was the pill even invented then? I don't know.
It was.
They would have discussed that, and there would have been a conscious decision that we don't want to have children yet. It's not just I haven't happened to fall pregnant. It's like they must have had some kind. They must either be having unprotected sex and kind of going, well, we're not trying to have a baby, but if it happens, it happens, or they're deliberately preventing it. And you would think if they're deliberately preventing it, then there would have been some kind of conversation around that.
Yeah, because
I assume since the book started literally with them on a sex holiday, that they've probably had a conversation prior to the book happen.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but the fact is that there is the fact. Sorry, I sound like I'm having a conversation with work people. Apologies. There is a scene where she's puking because of anxiety, right? And he assumes she's pregnant, and he's like, I don't know whether to be disappointed or not. That is a whole setup for a whole freaking conversation. Don't tell me it's not, right? There is a setup for a conversation of going, okay, how do you feel about that? Because if he is the world's most perfect man in the 50s, I don't believe he existed, then that is the conversation you have. So you're disappointed or not disappointed. When are we doing this? Are we doing this or not doing this? Like, that's when you have the conversation. You've had a pregnancy, I don't want to call it scare because I don't think that's what it was, but a pregnancy false positive. And how do you feel about that? Because he obviously had conflicting views, and is it the 50s and they just never talked about it again? I refuse to believe that. And I just, like, if we're going to be privileged to the whole, rising hopes discussion, then we should be having a whole privy to the, I hated that bit, by the way. That's why I quoted it. Then we should be privy to that whole discussion. And I don't know if it just didn't fit in with the plot or not, but it's an important discussion. If he is going to be, if they're talking about that, if he is being exactly what I'm seeing in here, which is basically a 21st century partner who wants the best for his partner, they work together, they're trying to do things 50-50. I don't believe this is true of the times, but that's another discussion. Then that's a discussion you have. It's a discussion, and I know we've all talked about this privately off the air. We do this with all our partners. We have those discussions. What is our hopes and dreams for our life? And do other people factor into that or not? So I'm annoyed about that.
Would you read a prequel novel of them having discussions about their hopes and dreams?
I would read a prequel novel as a setup, like about their hopes and dreams, about her, even her in college, like
actually, I'd agree, Naomi.
Her experience in college, and the year that she tried to commit suicide, and like that's just brushed under the rug. Like, oh, by the way, I tried to commit suicide once in college,
and I was in college when I was 12. Did I hear that?
14.
Yeah.
14.
What the hell? Like, what? Yeah,
that's not that surprising.
Put that in there, but not expand on that at all.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I just feel like there's so much history about this character that we don't get that I want. So
That's
yes, I would read a prequel, Matt.
I would read it too, but I'm worried that we wouldn't get the payoff, Naomi, that we're looking for.
I feel like we wouldn't get the payoff that we're looking for.
Instead of having a prequel, we could have just had more character development.
You're being really quiet over there. Are we trashing your book too much? I'm sorry.
Sorry, Matt.
I love you, Mel.
Okay.
It's Matt's pick, not Mel's.
No, but Mel loves
it.
this the most.
Oh, okay.
I can see why Mel loved it, though. It's got all of the things that Mel loves in it, right?
It had elements that I wasn't 100% behind. I still gave it 5 stars because I overall still thought it was a worthwhile book, and I didn't think the niggling points that I didn't like were a big deal. So let's shift the conversation and let's discuss one of the things I didn't like then, which was actually I had problems with being in her head when she had her anxiety episodes. Specifically, I think this comes from the fact that I was listening to the audiobook. Because I have since read one of those scenes in the physical book because I did like a scan read to sort of just try and catch myself up. Didn't work very well. But anyway, but I was reading through that and it did not bother me half as much reading in the physical version. But in the audio version, you're really deep in her head. And those scenes, I was just like, because I don't get anxiety like that. Like I get anxiety, but not like that. And I was just like, oh, this is really, really hard to be. I get that this is probably very realistic, but oh God, this is hard.
Yes, it is very realistic. I would not know what that is like at all.
And perhaps that's, and I actually came to the conclusion that this, in the end, which is why I didn't docket any points for it, was because I thought that, the fact that it was realistic and just because it bothered me didn't mean that it wasn't good. It meant that I emotionally struggled with it.
How did you feel about it, Naomi, as a fellow who also suffers anxiety? Did you feel it was good? Did you feel it was bad? Did you feel it was mediocre?
No, that part of the book I actually found fairly like a lot of people don't understand what anxiety is really like. Like when people think that a panic attack is when you can't catch your breath and they don't necessarily understand that anxiety attack can just be the onset of extreme nausea and vomiting and you everything just doesn't sound right and like people think that anxiety is just this one way that it's usually sort of portrayed as like this panic attack. And it is. It's like most things that are mental health. It's a spectrum. And I really appreciated a book showing that it can be like that.
Yeah.
How did you feel, Naomi, about the drug issue, the medication issue?
Oh, I have notes about that.
Oh yeah, me too.
That's what I was interested to hear because, I'm just interested to hear people's opinions about that whole side.
Can I just make the note before Naomi carries on that I'm also someone who suffers from anxiety. I'm on medication for my anxiety. I go to a therapist for my anxiety. So I'm just putting that out there. I know it's being recorded, but it's not something I feel like I should be ashamed of, even though I feel like the society wants me to be ashamed of it.
Society can kiss my fucking ass.
I love you, Gnomes. I love you.
Do you take a Panadol when you have a headache?
Me? Hell yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So,
yeah.
Would you be embarrassed to say that you take a Panadol when you have a headache in front of people? And yet,
I really, really appreciated that the doctor pointed that out to her.
Yeah.
Me too.
But I was like, but this is the 50s.
Yeah, that was my other thought.
And the drugs back then were not good.
And they weren't good. And that was my feedback.
Doesn't it say a lot about me that I didn't care about all the maths and the rockets and whatever, but I did go and Google Milltown to find out more about that and about whether or not people still take it and about how effective
it is.
It's a it was taken off of medical lists around the world quite a while ago.
It was.
I wouldn't be surprised to find that out.
As a trend anymore.
Yeah. I enjoyed enjoyed's not the right word, but I, unlike Mel, and maybe it's because I suffer from it, I thought those anxiety scenes were good, but I will take on board, and I think it's interesting to hear how that is for someone who maybe doesn't suffer from anxiety in that way. But I appreciated it, and I think especially for someone, for me it was really interesting because I don't suffer from the anxiety about being in front of a whole lot of people. Like that's not my anxiety. Like everyone gets nervous in performance modes, and I have had that where I've actually like learned scripts and everything is falling out of my head.
Yeah,
but I
get that, but I wouldn't call it anxiety. I
would call it just stage fright. It's just stage fright, right?
Yeah.
But I have anxiety about other things. I had it today. I mean, I was tearing up at work with my espresso martinis because I feel like I've let people down because I feel like I didn't ask the right questions at the right time, and I'm letting my confidence. I'm starting on a spiral about things going. It's my fault.
I have no idea what that's like, Sarah. I have no idea.
But I also think it doesn't always have to be.
That's mine, right? So when she talks, like I could sense it. I don't know if anyone's read Toodles all the way down, but it's not a half bad attempt at showing what it's like for someone who you get into these spirals and you start going from here to here to here to here and you can't quite get out of it. And I thought that in fairness to the author, I thought she did portray some of that spiraling that you do when your stupid mental health issue gets the best of you really well. The Milltown thing, I'm glad they prescribed something. The issue that I have with it, which unfortunately is the issue that I do think the astronaut, the NASA, they're not called NASA, I don't know who they are, ISA brought up is a fair one because it was a tranquilizer. It isn't an anti-anxiety medicine. However, it paved the way. So I'm in two minds about that.
And drugs affect different people different ways too, because a friend of mine who takes anxiety medication, she takes like half the dose the doctor told her to take, and it knocks her out. Like she's like, if I take it, I have to be ready to go to bed within half an hour because it just. But she's like that with all drugs. Like she takes way less than what the doctor
I had
said
to negotiate with my shrink, like with the person, not my shrink, but the person I was negotiating with. I had to say, I've taken 25 milligrams of this. Do you want me to take 75 to 150 a day? I feel like I'm drunk. Like I can't do my job. Like, and this was her going, there is this bit of it's like keto. If anyone's ever done keto, you're going to have to get over this hurdle. But it's hard because you're like, I need to be at my best, but I know my anxiety doesn't put me at my best, but it's this kind of weird thing. So
because you need to keep using it to get it built up so that your body actually functions the way it's supposed to.
But Naomi gets it. Yeah.
I only worked in pharmacy for 10 years. It's fine.
Yeah. But that's what I had the problem with the Milltown, is she just kind of take it like a Panadol, and I'm like,
it's in the same family as diazepam. It's not an anti-anxiety medication that you use long term. It is something you use when you're having an attack and not the time.
Yeah,
Oh, right.
Oh, right. That helps me understand a little bit better.
So that's
so it's like having a Panadol when you have a headache is exactly that anxiety. Like, I'm in a really panicky situation, I'm about to be in one. I need to take the edge off because I've just had a whole lot of drinks, but it's like that, right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So it's designed as a medication that you take when you know you need it. Like, it's the difference between having a preventer puffer and your Ventolin. Ventolin you take when you're having an asthma attack.
Right.
And your preventer you take once a day or twice a day to prevent having any problems, and then you use this other thing as a top-up. Milltown, which is, it seems like it's in the same family as like diazepam and benzoates. You use when you're having an attack or you're having a problem. It is a tranquilizer, but you would use it the way that she is describing that you use it.
Right. I'm going to have a tough day. I need to take it down a level. I'm at 11. I need to be back down to an 8.
Yeah, and you'd only use it when you need it. You wouldn't use it day after day. It's not something that needs a build-up effect. I feel like if you were using it every day, you'd end up having the opposite effect, where you'd have to just keep taking more and more and more to get any effect. The same as with like the nasal spray. You know how they say you're only supposed to use it 3 to 5 days? Because if you use it longer than that,
it makes it
then it doesn't work anymore, and you just have a drippy nose for the rest of your life. Same idea.
No, it actually makes it worse if you take that nasal stuff. Like, too many days in a row, it starts making you sick rather than.
One of those people, but
And that's the same sort of idea. Your body becomes dependent on it.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, bye, Dot.
Oh no, she's just got eye drops to put in. She'll be back.
Okay, cool. Sorry, there's so much to talk about, Matt.
That's all right.
It's such a spicy book in a good way. I love these books.
That's actually a topic that I'm very interested in, and I think we could probably continue talking about that later if anyone likes to talk about that more. But I do feel obligated to steer it back slightly.
No, that's okay. You can
Please do, Matt. You did that beautifully, by the way. Such a beautiful filter of the emotion into positive energy. I love it.
That's all right. No, it's good. It's good. So, how are we going with your list, Sarah? How many points have we knocked off?
Firstly, I just want to touch upon, did everyone who felt that Nathaniel was too perfect a partner for the 50s?
Even possibly for today.
Even possibly.
I think he wasn't really a character. He was kind of that cardboard cutout.
Yeah, and that was disappointing to me because I think there could have been such great exchange development between her and her husband. Yeah.
Disagreeing.
I think I'm so used to reading that it didn't even occur to me until right now.
Yeah, no, I didn't really think about it until we started talking about it. And I'm like, oh yeah, he was Mr. Perfect Pants with perfect hair and perfect everything.
Yeah, he was like, he was tall, he was ripped.
And Sarah J. Maas.
Yeah. But even male main characters have problems.
Yeah, now they do.
Elizabeth's got something to say.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, Elizabeth.
That's okay. I was just disagreeing with the assessment that he's too perfect. For a start, I don't agree with assessments of that someone was too progressive for their time, because I feel like there are people who cover the spectrum throughout all time periods. And also he had his blind spots too, most definitely. And that comes up in the book.
I'd like to caveat that there was nothing built up plot-wise from that. Yes, he had his blind spots, but they were resolved. I remember watching the second one that came up, and it was resolved within the second 2 paragraphs. One of them was when she missed the payment and he forgave her, or he had a go at her about something and he said, oh, it's all on me. It would have been more interesting to see him not realize that a bit sooner. It just seemed that he realized his mistake a bit sooner.
I see what you're saying. I feel like it also, though, ties into the idea that it's not a character-driven book. It's just like characters doing this and this so that the plot can move forward. I think there are like a few issues like that it would have been good to dig into. But at the same time, I kind of also feel like sometimes it's okay just to touch on the issue to say this could have been a thing as well.
I agree with you about the character stuff. I think. Sorry, Mel. I think.
Someone go.
Sorry, you go, Mel.
You were going, go.
No.
I was just going to say, I think that the main character was fleshed out reasonably well, and all the other background characters were fairly caricatured and weren't in depth. And maybe he comes across as perfect because we really didn't see that much of him. Like, we didn't really get any of the thought processes of his, or it would have been interesting if you got in his head and see what was going on in his head, and maybe more was going on in his head than what was happening on the pages that we saw. But yeah, anyway.
No, I mean,
I think that comes back to the fact that Elma is
Mel,
real.
go.
It really is from Elma's perspective, and her husband is brilliant and wonderful from her perspective.
Yep.
And I think that's the same with a lot of other characters as well. If you think back to Harry Potter, it's really not all that different. You're in Harry's head, and you don't really see depth of character there because you're only in Harry's head.
What was that?
Another.
Sorry, there was a yell. What was the yelling?
We're not all evil.
No, you're not.
But you are all self-centered.
And saying that in Finis's book, this is part of a series, and like Harry Potter in the first episode, because we just watched, I'm taking my husband through the movies. This is a good point, Mel. This is the first book. Yes, I might be a little hard on it, whereas maybe some of that will come through. Like, Malfoy is from the pure bloods of the Malfoys, and he is like, oh, he's on this side. But actually, by the end of it, he's going, war is really shit, and I've been in a really shitty situation. This is not everything it cracked up to be, and blah, blah, blah.
There's a difference between the 7-book series and one book.
Yeah.
And this is one book from one person's perspective that we're seeing with a whole host of characters.
Yeah.
And so, of course, and if you think about it, these are characters that she sort of gets to know, but she doesn't get really super close with most of them. And Nathaniel's the exception, but she idolizes Nathaniel.
Yeah.
She loves Nathaniel completely. And so I don't think that she would ever spend a lot of time dwelling on his faults.
That's a really good point, Mel. It reminded me of Name of the Wind and Quoth, however you say his stupid name. And people saying about how perfect he is, but it's only him. I always think that that series is so coloured by the fact that he's telling the story, and I think you're right
awesome
here.
and amazing and good looking, and I got the goddess, and I can do all the magic. Yeah, exactly.
And I think Mel's theory is supported by the fact that, yes, Parker is a shitty person, but he's almost villain-like. No one is that evil for a realistic person. Like, people have layers.
So do ogres.
And he really, really, like onions. Like onions and ogres and cake and parfait. And she really she paints him as a complete and utter villain.
Yeah.
And
he just needs a moustache to twirl.
Oh man, I wanted to punch him in the face.
So bad.
But she set up some nice nuances there, right? There are some nice nuances she set up for Nathan. We do not know what's going on with his wife.
I want to know about his wife.
He loves his kids. So there's some nuances that we're sensing.
And even when he does finally step up and say, yes, I have a leg injury, no, I'm not going on their space trip, she still finds a way to make it seem as though he's doing it for totally self-centered purposes.
But even then she does say, look, I could just be seeing this as self-centered because I don't like him.
She did say at one point, he actually seemed really nice to other people, and then there was I can't remember what the situation was, but she was observing something he was doing, and she was like, oh, he's actually seems really competent and good. And then
to be honest,
chair cage doodad thing, I think.
Yep. I remember. So I wonder. So here's a spicy thought. I actually think that what's his name? Stetson Parker, which I would like to point out is the most VF name that has ever come across.
His first name is a hat.
Yeah, exactly. Stetson Parker.
He's a
I have an
cowboy.
original fantasy book called, The Way Forward to the Stars. I just like
He's Colonel Hat Jacket to you.
yeah. I love it. I love it. Elizabeth does not look amused with her behavior. Yeah, like Stetson Park, like, he is in a weird way more nuanced than her husband. Like,
Yeah.
he is actually well developed.
Yeah,
Like,
he's definitely more fleshed out as a character. Agreed.
And
I feel like I know more about him than I do about her husband, and that might be why I feel like he's too perfect. But that's because I feel like we're in her head. We should feel more, like we should know more about him, and I just don't. Like, I feel like we don't hear a lot about her thoughts about him. And
She's busy with other shit.
Yeah, I agree.
Trying to become an astronaut.
well, I don't need to hear about her sexy times. I want to know what she's thinking about her fucking husband.
You know what?
Yeah,
if I was
fucking
busy
an
trying
husband.
to
Sorry,
become,
he's having a rocket launch.
She likes his butt.
busy trying to become an astronaut, my thoughts would be focused on my training, mathematics, and having sex occasionally.
Well, her training consisted of her being in a bikini and dunked in a pool. It's not exactly high science testing.
And when she did get to go into
Yeah.
space, we don't find out what all that testing was, which I was really interested in. God damn you!
I found that test with the that they froze her inner ear so she would get all dizzy.
Oh, that
and
freaks me out.
make her answer questions while she's trying to not have vertigo. I thought that was really interesting.
It was
Is that a
good, but
real
I
thing?
freaked out.
Vomiting.
Matt might know. Is that a thing that they do? Like, can you freeze
He
someone's
based
inner
it
ear
all on
without
her
like
research.
fucking with their?
Yep.
It was all completely based on her research that she did on this.
Wow,
I had no
was
idea.
like,
But
oh
the
my
fact
god.
that they didn't tell her, they didn't say. And I suppose they're checking to see how did this person react to
I'm
not
sorry,
knowing what the test is. I don't know, but
My reaction to someone putting something in my ear will be, get the fuck away from me, you weirdo. What the fuck are you doing to my ear?
Yeah, but
You're not
weird.
going into space, Naomi.
No, but
And you-
shouldn't they be like the people who are going into space should recognize when something's not bloody right? Like,
yeah, like someone's coming at my ear with something weird. Yeah.
No, they're desperate to
distraction.
go to space. They'll let them do whatever they want to them.
yeah.
Anyway, back on Stetson Parker, I think there's a lot.
Captain Hat Jacket.
But yeah, well, one, I looked up the Stetson Parker name. One, Stetson, yes, it's an over hat, but it's also Anglo-Saxon, comes from Stuttgart, which means fighter, boxer, which is what he is.
Mm-hmm.
And a wild young person, which is what he was in his past. So I did think at the same time, like as much as it's a vaginal fantasy kind of name, hero, out to do his oats thing. It was actually a really good name choice. So I was like, awesome author. So I just wanted to put that kudos out there because I know we're kind of
my name better.
You like your name?
What's that? Say that again.
Hat Jacket. Colonel Boxer Hat Jacket. Because he's a.
It sounds like you're talking in the
in tongues.
no, the radio language with the alpha.
Oh yeah.
Bravo.
The phonetic
yeah.
alphabet.
Thank you.
Colonel Boxer,
Boxer Hat
Parker.
Jacket.
Anyway, I thought. Anyway,
After
let's
that.
talk about. Do you want to talk about him a little bit, Matt?
Who?
Stetson
Boxer Hat
Parker.
Jacket.
Yeah, let's talk about Stetson.
That guy.
That guy.
That guy. I do know he was set up to be villainy, but at the same time, I think there was that thing of he has developed a deep-seated, and I believe this. As far as character development, I got it. She caused him a lot of pain, anxiety, and annoyance and disruption to his career by reporting him.
For reporting him for grabbing women.
Yeah, but okay, what I was going to say was he doesn't know and doesn't acknowledge, doesn't realize what he does is wrong. He hasn't seen that yet. He still thinks he is entitled.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the bit that hasn't happened. He hasn't realized he's not entitled to that behaviour. He still
Or
thinks that is my behaviour and people need to deal with it. You are lesser than me. I know it's not supposed to happen, but that's the behaviour. He still sees that he is superior and should be getting away with it, right? Or should
not
be.
just that. I don't think he thinks it's a big deal. I think he thinks it's like they should be grateful for him grabbing him. Like, I'm just shocked. And I mean, that's an attitude we still get today, where men are like, "It's a compliment. Why aren't you thanking me?" Because
I grabbed his ass really tight when you walk in the top. That's a compliment. No, I didn't need you touching me. Yeah, I've had that argument before.
yeah, so like that's where he's coming from. He's thinking, well, what is she even reporting me for? I was being nice. Like that's where his headspace is.
So to him,
Not that
it's
that's
like,
right, but that's where he's thinking.
absolutely, because he hasn't had that breakthrough of going, I am treating you as other, that I am superior, and I'm seeing you as lesser. You know, like he still hasn't had that breakthrough
and not astronauts.
His first appearance, actually, their first meeting in the book was the most stressful part of the book for me. I almost put it down at that point.
Oh, elaborate.
Remind me what happened.
It's been quite a while since I read it, so my memory's not super fresh, but it was just like meeting someone who is like that super sexist, entitled bastard really stressed me out.
And he didn't remember who she was.
No, that's
either.
right. She was like, oh, it's that guy. And he's like, huh? What? Oh,
yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Which
I wonder if he did
didn't
remember who she was. I wonder if he did know who she was, because the way he reacts, if you think about the rest of, if we do think of it as this, it is character development. The way he reacts afterwards, you have to be deep-seated anger, resentment, revenge for him to carry on doing what he was doing, right?
Yeah, like later on, he's all like, you're the general's daughter and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
He knew who she was.
Revenge was against her, and that is in keeping with everything that's been set up. But I completely agree with Elizabeth. That first scene where she is stressed about meeting him, and he is like, that's like, oh, but he would have known, right? And I wonder
the power in the situation.
I reread it this morning, that scene, and I really don't think he did know. I think that because her name had changed, but he knew who she was as soon as she explained that he knew her, and he went, and there was an immediate shift in his behaviour.
Right.
Good point. Yeah, I don't remember that scene strongly, but I do remember her talking about, like, she's just lived through the apocalypse, for God's sake, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the other reason why I don't think he was pretending, because he was too busy with the apocalypse as well.
Yeah. Totally remember that. And she met some very nice people who guided them in. Like, she already met nice people who became lifelong friends.
Yeah.
And then to meet him, and she's like, oh yeah, that's right. This is what the armed forces are.
Yeah.
And that hasn't changed, I can tell you.
No, not judging by, I don't know, I'm not going to get into politics tonight, but God damn it, America. God damn you.
No, not just America either. Like, no, she would,
no,
but have experienced stuff. And yeah.
Anyway, moving on. Anyway, I enjoyed Stetson Parker's development. I actually think he was one of the really, I actually believe a lot of what was set up there. I really do.
I thought he was
do you
the only other character. The only other character that had any kind of character interest.
It was fleshed out.
Depth.
Yeah. I totally got his motivation. I understood why he was so resentful, because of the timing. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Even
more than Nathaniel.
Yeah. He's likely to be scheduled back onto the launches cycle soon after this one finishes. I'm assuming that he's probably going to feature in the next book as well.
No comment.
Okay, very good.
I would like
That
to
means yes.
So what?
Now, I was going to say, Mel wouldn't say anything unless you had something to say. But enough.
I'm trying to be good, okay?
In terms
I would like
of
to
that,
say that doing spinal surgery in the 50s, they wouldn't have expected him to come back. Like,
No.
I have a bone spur. It's not on my spine. It's on my hip, but it is still very close to my spine. The doctors advised me not having my bone spur removed, even though it does cause me some discomfort. or because it's so close to my spine. And even now, with the technology we have now, they still wouldn't recommend it.
So that's an interesting thing, because that specific injury, what condition, is literally lifted from Michael Collins.
And I mean, I'm not saying that they wouldn't do the surgery. I'm saying that they wouldn't have expected it to
It would
go
have been
as well.
risky.
They seemed to expect him to come back and not have problems. And
I read it verbatim. I didn't see there's anything different.
Did they expect him to come back, or is that the position that they were presenting to the media?
I mean, even behind closed doors, they seem to be expecting.
I don't remember it clearly enough. So.
Yeah, but being someone who works with people, you wouldn't say that to your staff members. Oh, by the way, we don't think he's going to make it through. You wouldn't say that.
No, I don't think that they would have expected him to die, and I wouldn't have expected him to.
Just not return to.
I wouldn't be expecting him to come back to flying. Flying.
Yeah, I agree, but that's
a
not
very vigorous sort of thing on your body. And after had spinal surgery, I just can't believe that they would have expected him to come back that quickly.
No, and the suspicion is, and I'm thinking through it, I'm like, I don't think that was ever. That's why they had a different schedule put in place, because as much as they said that, I suspect, and I don't know who he is because I keep thinking he's called Colonel Parker from
not Elvis's manager.
No, from the Bob series. I keep calling him Colonel Parker because he had the same kind of accent. You know, Colonel Parker. No, I don't know. Who's the guy?
I know who you mean. The guy on
Yeah. Anyway, the British guy who seems to be.
I know who you mean.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I suspect he probably was having, as we learn he is anyway, having discussions about what is the state of play, because when Stetson Parker came back and he found out Elmer was stepping up, those are the kind of discussions that are being had that a lot of people aren't privy to. So that had been approved at some point.
So here you go.
So I have no those exactly that. It's like, what do we do? So Parker isn't coming back. What do we do? This has happened. What do we do? You are always being agile and moving on the ground, and not everyone's privy to that information because you don't let people down.
I wouldn't expect Elmer to be privy to the conversation of he's not coming back or we don't expect him to come back. But the vibe that everyone was giving was, oh, we expect him to be back in a few weeks kind of thing. Like,
but that is also a vibe you put out to your people because you do not want them to be stressed about what happens if it doesn't happen. And you have a plan of attack if it does, because that's what we do and what I do. You just
Elma knew what was going. Like, Elma knew that what he was actually having. Like, she knew that he had bone spurs on his spine that were pressing against his spinal cord, and that's what was causing the nerve damage or the nerve, like, tingling and numbness in his leg. Like, and it seems weird that her mother was a doctor and she wasn't suspicious about the fact that he would, like, be back. Like, it didn't seem like she didn't sort of think about him not coming back. Like, she didn't say, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe it's a similar thing to the reason why they had all the, like, the family members of the astronauts up on the roof, and so they were, like, away from everyone else because they're like,
yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, like, we're just going to put this thing out that it's just for, you know, not for a bad reason, but it's kind of because we're covering our asses that if something goes badly, they're not going to be.
I think that, but I also think it's actually weirdly in the 21st century perspective. I actually really appreciate it because people should be allowed to have their reactions in private.
And also, there's also that thing of
there's a media part, but I also think there's a weird. It lies in the same direction as a respect aspect to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But it's also like this image that like, I know they're not called NASA, whatever they're called. But NASA, the real life NASA, has this thing where they're like, we need to have a certain public perception, otherwise we're going to lose funding. So we have to put out this image that everything's great and we've got everything under control and we understand, you know, oh, he's gone away, but he's going to be back. It's all good. It's all good. Not just to the media, but to everyone, that they're projecting this kind of image of competency,
especially during the Cold War space race. Like, that was even more important to maintain that image at that time. It's not quite as bad now, but
now it's just like, how do we get funding at all?
Yeah.
What is this funding you speak of?
Yeah. Back just on Stetson before we move off Stetson. we're assuming, no spoilers from Mel, that he's going to be back in the next book. In terms of his development, what do you think might be, Sarah, you were talking about it before, that he hasn't had that moment of, clarity or transition about his behaviour and how he's treating women. What do you think might be the catalyst for that to happen? Because presumably the 1950s society in the books is pretty close to our one in terms of attitudes. What's going to be the thing that makes this character go, oh, you know what?
I got it.
I'm actually doing the right thing.
The wife.
Yes, I need to know what the hell is going on with his wife.
Yeah.
That was actually one of the biggest disappointments of this book, was that we didn't find out what the hell was going on with his wife.
I feel like maybe she's like in some sort of like mental facility or something, and that's why
I figured it was some kind of mental health thing, but
maybe that's why he did a job in Elma.
Yeah. Or what's the one where you suffered from? What was the one you used to have to go to an iron lung for?
Polio.
I wondered about polio.
Oh, yeah, because he was really like, I know it's not polio.
Yeah. And I wondered if it was that or something else that debilitated her ability to walk, like her physical mobility, because would that
be something that he wouldn't want people to know?
That's what I'm wondering. Like, that's not something that was kind of a taboo or embarrassing thing that he would want to hide necessarily.
Yeah, whereas if it was something like mental health, it would be like.
Yeah.
And is that why he was so reactionary to the whole Milltown anxiety thing? Yeah.
Elizabeth, you look like you've got something you want to say.
Yeah, actually, I had a different suggestion. I think that the arc with his wife is going to be interesting, and I'm looking forward to that. But I think one thing that might really hammer home any kind of transformation is if he and Elma were in space and something went wrong, and he would find himself needing to rely on her for help.
Oh god, yeah, that would be great if that happened.
That's what I thought was happening in the airplane when he was
help.
I was like, something's happening to his leg. He's going to have to save him. That's it. But
she did try to make a bargain with him, which is, I'll do this if you back down. He's like, I'm not gonna.
Now, that said, I get the impression that he does actually respect competence, no matter whether it's in men or women. But the thing that he got in trouble for was being handsy. What's going to change his behaviour and, how's he going to turn into an okay guy?
The weird thing is, Matt, I think he has changed his behaviour. There's no terms in this where he sounds like he's handsy in this.
Okay, but is that because he got in trouble for it before?
Exactly. I think he has I guess Targaryen / Lannister style of what's the thing, like built up revenge, like there's a sunk cost in it, right? Like, I have to be this way, and what she keeps making the comment that when he's training, he's an amazing teacher, and he doesn't see race, he doesn't see sex, he looks for exactly what was talked about before, competence and that kind of thing.
That was really good sequence too. I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah.
Me too. But I think there is going to be some good stuff with the wife, and I agree. I hope, like Elizabeth does, and I think we've been set up for that. I think there will be something in space with the two of them. What that is, we'll find out. We've been in jet plane with them, going to the doctors. I mean, jet planing with the doctors. I mean,
the 50s were an amazing time.
I know, right? I mean, I could get there in like 2 minutes instead of like 25. It'd be great.
But then you still have to sit there for like 3 hours.
Well, you've got to find a park for your plane.
That's the trick. Me, I'm like, where did you guys park? Because I'm all about the I'm like, where did Elma park this plane so he could go into the doctor?
Like, how long did they fly? Like, if they're in a jet plane, they can go pretty fast. Maybe they went.
Yeah, but I was also sitting there thinking, wow, you could so not get away with that today because everything is tracked. So why were you sitting in Hawaii for 3 hours? Why were you parked in Honolulu? Like, what was going on?
Not to mention that when he went into the doctors, they would have registered him on some computer, and it would have been like,
Yeah, his My Health
wouldn't have
record.
had a computer back then. It would have all been paper charts. Like,
no, I know, but that's what Sarah was saying. It was like, imagine if it was now, like they would have just tracked everything.
yeah. I mean, he could have very easily like flown to like Indianapolis or Nashville or Atlanta.
I don't disagree with that, but I'm like, yeah, but where do you land a jet plane?
All of those, well, Nashville would have had some sort of like army base like airport.
Can you just
And
like
no
land
one
randomly? Like, don't you have to
Don't
plot your course and
Yeah.
phone ahead that you're going to be there? Kind of thing.
I
the
assume-
radio tower making a record of everybody who lands at the airport. So I still had some kind of like, this is great, but I still think even in the 50s there was a disability.
I
Disability.
assumed that they wrote it, like logged it as a training flight, flew to another airbase somewhere, and
We were
where
practicing
he either
landing.
knew the
Refueled and then
refuel.
Yes, and refueled. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the project manager of me who goes, how do you get away with this? Because I want to know.
Just
To Tallahassee.
good planning.
What were you doing for 3 hours? I just had I ate a really bad taco, and I was just in the bathroom.
There was problems with the
To be fair, he
refueling
did vomit,
apparatus.
so
That is not a bad excuse, Kirsten. That is not a bad excuse.
My IBS was playing up.
Yeah. Thanks, Kim.
I just want to know, do we ever find out where in Kentucky this airbase is? I want to know now because I want to find it on the map or find where it
Is
would
this
be on
the
the map.
doctors? The doctors?
No,
No.
the actual airbase.
Where they,
What was
where
it called?
they
I
kind
thought
of
they were-
established the new launch, what would have been Cape Kennedy and then became Cape Canaveral stuff, like where that would be now. If it wasn't in Florida, it moved to Kansas. But
Kansas.
That's right, because they had to change
'Cause that was
where
all
they were gonna
wiped
do
out.
it because it was all like
got
blasted by the
tsunami'd.
Yeah.
I-
Sorry, I got confused. Do you mean
Oh.
when you said Kentucky? Did you mean Kansas?
I did mean Kansas. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm a big
No,
dirty.
it's
I
okay.
didn't even
I was just
notice.
thinking. I thought that's why I was asking if you
Heard
meant
Kansas.
doctors. Because I thought maybe they were in Kentucky.
No, that's fine. But now I'm like, where in Kansas were they? Like, I want to know. Great, mate.
Well, they weren't far from Kansas City, right? Because they lived in Kansas City.
just looking.
Wow, Kansas City is like right on the border of Kansas and Missouri.
Mhm.
That's so weird. Why is your capital of your state like right on the border?
So there's Fort
Lots of
Leavenworth.
those. Boston tongue curry, just like to point it out.
Fort Leavenworth is just outside of Kansas City.
Usually
it's-
capitals are there because there's some kind of natural feature like a river. But
Yeah, river, lake, ocean.
No, I suppose it is on a river.
The city probably existed before the borders were put into place too.
that is a very good point.
Cape Canaveral. See, I didn't realize until I watched. I never realized until I watched actually Ocean's 13. Even though I knew it, but I didn't ever made the connection that they took off in Florida and then they handed it over to Texas. I never thought about that. Because Houston. I never thought about Houston being elsewhere.
Yeah.
But it is. It is in
Yeah.
a different time zone. It's actually it's actually amazing, but also cool because it's like flexi working from the beginning. It's awesome, like flexible working. Like we don't have to be where they are. We can be here.
Don't forget about like parks in Australia where they're like, oh crap, now they're on the other side
Another
of the
side
earth.
of the world. Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
I love that story.
Honeysuckle
Fish.
Creek is down the road from me.
Oh really?
Oh, really?
Oh, cool.
I would like to go there one day actually.
I want to go there
There's not
too.
much left there now. There's mostly just the foundations, but
Yeah, it's not.
there is
Is there no dish there now anymore?
I knew it
it's
was a
just
dish.
moved. So it's not at the same Honeysuckle Creek site. It's a little ways closer to town actually.
Oh,
So
okay.
whereabouts in New South Wales are you?
I'm in the ACT.
Sorry, you're in ACT, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Right, okay. Because I always think about Parks being out near the border with.
No, it's not Parks. Like Parks did some, but Honeysuckle Creek also did some.
Honeysuckle Creek. Cool.
Oh, cool.
Sorry, I was getting confused because I was thinking, I don't think you're way out west, but
No.
maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, I was thinking maybe I'm completely wrong, and I know someone out west.
But where the dishes are now, they're still allied with NASA, so they still do lots of tracking for NASA and that sort of thing. When Cassini was
cool.
flying and stuff, and they have screens where they put up their schedules showing like what they're tracking today and that sort of thing, which dishes they're using.
Cool.
Side note, if anyone's interested, on Netflix, there's a fantastic series called 7 Days, and it's about 7 days out from major events, and there's one on the Cassini, the finish of the Cassini project, where they basically burnt the Cassini probe. Yeah, they crashed it, but they didn't really crash it. It just burnt up in the atmosphere.
Well, yeah.
It's very cool, and I shed tears, but in good ways, because everyone's like dedicated so much. Anyway, I recommend it. Watch it.
For some reason, for a second there, I thought you were going to recommend the flat Earth thing in there, and I was like, no. I don't know why, but my head just went, oh, no, please don't do that, Sarah.
No. There's it's a wonderful, and there's lots of women involved, which is also really heartening, and I loved that. And
I think we're one of the ladies that worked on Cassini. I'll have to check it out and see if she's been interviewed.
Yeah. So the flight director is a woman, and she came up from another project, and it's her baby, and everyone just like sees her as like, yeah, like the mentor, the goddess, the god. You know, she's amazing, and she has like this amazing supportive family who just went like, yeah, it was really cool. So anyway.
NASA put out a promo video a few days ago, sort of to coincide with the Artemis announcement,
which I'm never gonna not see as Artemis from the book. It'll be so hard.
Which had William Shatner doing some voiceover work.
Oh no!
Oh god!
Yeah, well, he's good. He can like when he does the Shatner comma. Like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But what I did notice was there were a lot of women in the video, and also a lot of people of color as well. It was a really good video, very representative.
Yeah, this is the woman. Her name's Julie Webster. She's so cool. I'm just going to put her up in here in the chat, and then we'll move on. But I just think she's.
I was just about to say, we have travelled far off course, Captain.
We have.
Yeah.
Well, this is a good chance. I've got to go to the loo.
Yeah. Do we want to go make more drinks, or do we want when we come back?
Kirsten's up for more drinks. She's literally getting up for more drinks.
I already had
Sorry,
drinks
no,
with them,
it's-
bring me tea.
Yeah, drinks like friend. Bought Karina tea.
That's
Oh, I
it.
love
I
your
made
mug.
tea.
Terrific.
That is the best.
I have also made tea.
Yay,
I'm
tea.
still going on the beer. There's only a little.
I've had the double martinis, and I want more.
We can take a very short break if we like.
How
Is
much
that-
have we got left to go? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, but this is
as far
us,
as we
Elizabeth.
want
You
to.
haven't met us. We just go on and on.
We haven't
Sarah?
talked about the racism yet, have we?
No, and
There
I'm
was
also
racism.
I feel like that's something
That was
that
racism.
needs some talking about.
yeah, we do need to talk about that, and also I guess I want to. And it's hard, but I really like also like hear from G on this. Like I think it's hard for people to write about other people's experiences sometimes, and I'm curious to know what we all thought about that. And yeah,
I think you'll be rather surprised about what I'm going to say about that. Sarah.
I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear what you think.
All right. Well,
Wait,
Sarah.
wait. I'm nearly done.
Yeah.
Okay, I can keep talking. I don't need martinis.
What,
God
we're
knows
not
I do
taking,
How is
we're
your
not
list
doing a
looking?
drink?
List is looking really good. We've gone over, like, we talked about, I mean, we haven't actually talked about the main character yet. I feel like that's a good place.
No, that's a good point, because I was actually going to say, if you didn't have a point, I was going to steer it over to say, we've talked about Nathaniel and Stetson, but we haven't actually talked about Elma yet.
Yeah.
Except from talking about some specific things around her, like her
Yeah, but-
anxiety and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you have anything particularly that you would like to talk about there, or
My only point was that I thought, like, I know she had these flaws, but I don't know. There was a little bit too much perfection. I don't know.
Let's say we're talking about Elma now. That's the point of discussion. Yeah.
Let's go.
I think both of the two. Well, it's hard to call Nathaniel a lead character because he's not really. He's just there. But they did seem, again, we've talked about his seeming perfection, possibly through the filter of Elma being the story. You know, she's telling the story. So we're seeing it through her personal lens of him. But as far as her own perception, is it another case of unreliable narrator? Is every first person story have to be viewed through the lens of the unreliable narrator? Like,
I
think the narrator will always have a bias, whether or not they're going to be unreliable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do feel like Elma, while she does see herself as not perfect, she also is very proud of her work doing her maths. Like, her work that she does that is work, like her math and her science, she feels so proud of that she does feel like she's perfect at it. And she might be. I'm not saying she's not. But we are seeing her through her eyes.
Yeah, I guess from, you know, my thing of being a bit of a space nut again, seeing someone who's like good at maths, is, you know, able to pilot planes, can go into space, that kind of stuff seems very like, oh, this person can do everything. But that's literally what astronauts have to be. Like, no one goes into space who's not an engineer or a mathematician, as well as all the other stuff.
Plus, you get her all her mental health issues that show you that she is human. She's not perfect in everything, and she doesn't. It's not like nothing ever phases her, and she, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I would say that
they're not painting her. She's not. I don't think she's painted as a Mary Sue.
No, definitely not.
No, definitely not.
I would I would also say that one of her other major flaws is her racism.
Yeah.
And
I'm glad you said that, because I meant to mention that.
She does try and pull herself up on it, but then she's like, am I being racist for realizing my racism? Or is it, you know, like, she's like, she does have a bit of a spiral of like.
And that's where I think it was really well done.
Yeah,
like,
I agree. I really liked that, because I thought
I'm not saying that that's a bad way to think it was written. Like,
I think it illustrated white privilege really well. The way she was like, "Oh, I didn't even notice that none of the people coming in from the planes was black." Like, she was like, "Oh, yeah, oh, you're right. There weren't any black people on the evacuation planes. I hadn't noticed." And I was like, I thought that was really, really interesting, the way they went, here's our sympathetic character. She's not portrayed as being the evil character, but you can see her white privilege, and you can see her her reactions being coloured by her own, like, by the society that she was in and all that sort of stuff. And I just thought that was really, really well done.
And I mean, like, that time period, she would have had a lot of incidental racism where she didn't realize that there was no black people, or she wouldn't have realized that the few, you know, until she was exposed to it from being in an environment with other people of other races. She, like, it wouldn't have occurred to her to think any differently.
No. And when she met all the other pilots, all the black pilots, and what they had been dealing with and stuff, and she was like, and their reaction to her and stuff, I quite actually enjoyed that part of the book, because I thought that it was quite realistic. But I'm saying this from my perspective, so.
Like, her, like, oh no, I've called all the mechanics to see if they can get me a propeller, and then her, like, going, oh wait, no, I called all the white mechanics. Like, even really her realization that she didn't realize in the moment, but she realized when she was speaking to this person of a different race, oh, I did leave out a whole race of people that I could be contacting that may be able to help me.
And it didn't even occur to her to call them at all. Like that.
No, it didn't even occur to her. And, like,
that was after she'd been called up a few times on different issues like that.
But to be fair, like, the time period, it will take her some time to start thinking about it. Like, Like,
But I think
think
that was
that's-
one of the things I liked was that she didn't just automatically get fixed.
No.
Like, she didn't
Yeah.
notice it and go, oh,
She
okay, I've
kept-
got to...
But I
I
also
agree.
like that
She
she
kept hitting issues. She went, I just fucked that up. Because when I'm going to speak as someone who's white and privileged, I fuck things up and I go,
Oh yeah.
fuck. I just said something that treated someone as other. I just put my experience into everybody else's basket. And I appreciate when people call me out on that. And I appreciate when people do it in a way that's like, I get the, I agree. I liked that
It was
as
also-
a person. There was nice call out of white and privilege to me.
Yeah,
which
She also
I
had a
agree.
nice.
I was like, I like that she was called out on it because I like it when I'm called out on it, and it was done in a really good way that made you think to try and be better at that stuff.
Yeah.
And
I really did like the way that she was called out in a way that they were trying to get her to actually think about it and not just be, you're not thinking about it, fuck
Yeah.
right off. Like,
They
wanted
weren't having
her
a go at her. They were just like, oh, did you think of this? And she was like, oh, shit. And I liked that she didn't get defensive and she didn't say, you know, oh, well, like she didn't try to defend the reasons that she did that. She just kind of actually checked herself and went,
I do think some of that comes down to her being a Jewish character,
Yes,
though.
thank you. That was
Yes.
really good because you see she's got that. She gets a little bit of that
She
perspective
already
herself.
has a bit of otherness.
and it
herself.
came back the other way too with the family that she was living with, and she
Yeah.
told them that she was Jewish, and then she was like,
you
cooking
don't look
bacon,
like a
and she was
Jewish
like,
person. And she was like,
Well,
okay.
and
I
then
get
she
it,
was
I get
cooking
it.
her the bacon, and she was like, no, I don't eat the bacon. And like the other lady was like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot that you don't do that.
And
Like,
then she cooked her eggs.
And then cooked it in bacon fat. Thanks. That's great.
Yeah. And I'm just sitting there thinking, for every vegetarian and vegan out there going, do we have to keep
Cheers.
having this conversation? But I'm like, that's where the conversation started was, yeah. And yeah, anyway, so I actually really love that because I'm thinking that's where I ended up having that first conversation with someone saying, if it's there, I can't eat it. Like, don't cook it on the same plate. Like, think of it as being completely different and understanding that cultural differences, whether it's one by religion or culture or by lifestyle choice. Like, respect those choices and understand what the implications are. And I've been lucky enough to have people who help me understand that.
Yeah, like even tonight we went and got takeaway, and I had chicken nuggets because I felt like having chicken nuggets and being a child. And I asked her to put them in a separate bag to like the takeaway chips. Usually they would just throw them on top, but I didn't want my chicken nuggets against the chips that Karina and Ben were going to eat.
I guess that's a good person, Naomi. I wouldn't have thought of that.
No, I wouldn't have either.
Oh,
And that's one of those moments where you go, oh crap.
Think of it.
You would have
Next time I will be that person. I will think of that for my friends and I will go, let's give them some separate.
Yeah, like I just asked her to like, even if they were just like wrapped in a separate piece of paper, just so they weren't against the chips. Like
No,
I didn't
I love that. I love that.
like just so that they, because I'm ordering 2 vegetarian burgers. I obviously don't want my meat to be touching the like $6 of chips that I'm buying for everyone, because not everyone will eat them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. And exactly the kind of thinking we need to all have when we.
And I
try
guess
to-
that's the thing, is that it takes up a lot of headspace, and that if it's not something that's important to you, it's easy for people to just forget about it and not think about it. And
I mean, I think that's
and
why-
everybody has their own thing that they're concentrating on, and it's yeah, I don't know. We should all be striving to try and think of others, but I guess it's easy for people to see things from their own perspective, I guess.
The flip side of that, though, is also it's tolerance both ways.
Yeah.
People aren't not always, some people, sure, but not everyone does that just to, they're still getting to grips with like, oh, I have to do that thing separately or do this.
Yeah. And I think that, sorry.
No, that's pretty much it.
I was just going to say, I think the difference is that when you're called out on it, you go, oh, fuck, yes, I should not have done that and I won't do it again. Instead of, because some people, when they're called out on it, get defensive and then
double down.
Try to put it back on the person who, try to
make
say.
sure I cook the chips in the animal fat this time.
Like, no, I don't mean like that. I just mean like try to put it back on. Well, it's your fault. It's your fault. You should have.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
you need to be thinking you're the one who wants to make the.
Can't you just pull the piece of bacon off your meal?
Yeah.
It'll still be meat free,
so
right?
you cater for me the majority. That's the attitude that gets pervaded, right? Which isn't what we should be doing. It's like going, no, everybody has, it depends on what context it's in. Which I think there was a really nice scene where Elma goes shopping with, what's her name? Please help me.
Is it Ida?
No.
You mean at the very beginning?
Yeah, she goes shopping for more clothes.
The lady who took her in.
The lady who took her in.
Eugene's
wife. Yes, I know. I can think of Eugene. What's Eugene's wife called?
I can't remember it. I never remember character names. I wouldn't have remembered Elmer unless you guys have told me.
2 seconds.
Eugene's wife.
2 seconds. I'll have it for you in a second. I was reading it this morning. I'll find it.
I never remember
people by their names in real life and now in fictional life too.
Oh God, it's my worst trait as a teacher. Like the kids are like, one of the kids said to me yesterday, "You've known me for years. Why can't you remember my name?" I'm like, I just don't. No. I'm like, I know your face, and I could probably tell you 10 things about you as a person. I can't tell you your fucking name because my brain doesn't know names.
She literally refers to her as Mrs.
I can tell you what kind of
Mrs.
Like.
Yes,
I can tell you what your mum looks like.
Is it Myrtle? Is it Myrtle?
It's an old lady name.
Page after page of Mrs. Lindholm. She called her Mrs. Lindholm.
That's probably why we don't remember.
That's probably why. I feel like it's Myrtle or something. Anyway, I did like her. At the beginning, they had
it is
to warm
Myrtle.
up.
You're right. It's Myrtle.
Oh, thank God I got it right.
Can't bring herself to call her Myrtle. She's like good guest mode.
So yes, because that would be rude to call her by her first
Yeah,
name.
exactly.
The two of them are like outdoing one another.
She is someone that is her senior. And in the 50s, as a young married woman, calling someone that is an older married woman by her first name.
Colleagues, but then they become colleagues, and she calls her Myrtle 100 times. Like Myrtle and Eugene came over, and Myrtle and Eugene are coming for drinks. Myrtle and Eugene are coming for dinner. And I couldn't remember either of them, so I don't know what. Well, I remember Eugene, couldn't remember Myrtle. But Myrtle, who really made an impression on me, when she went shopping with Myrtle, wasn't there a case that Myrtle took Elma's shopping in her hood, which was a predominantly an African American hood, and that Elma felt out of place, which I actually also really liked as narrative, or am I mishearing that?
No, it was a white proprietor. It wasn't a black store.
Oh, okay. I might have misheard that because
the only time that she felt out of place because of her colour was when Eugene took her to the Negro
the pilot
thing. I can't remember what the name of it was. I'm very sorry. I know that the word Negro was in it, and that's the only reason I'm using that word. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I also really enjoyed that scene, though. I liked that because it also made you go,
and I
those ladies were like, what the hell is this white girl here for?
Yeah.
What does she think she can tell us?
Yeah.
And it pissed me off so much. And I actually enjoyed, like, I think this is one of those things where it's like, I kind of actually enjoyed how much it pissed me off.
Mm-hmm.
Because that, like, if it's pissing me off, it's getting a reaction out of me, and it's not making me bored. And I think that's part of why I enjoyed the book, was because I was getting really emotional about some of the things that were happening, and it wasn't because, like, that my negative reaction to the things that were happening was actually positive in my way of reading the book, because it meant I cared. Whereas with a book that I rate low, it's like, oh God, I can't even be bothered reading this chapter because I just don't care. Whereas this, I was like, oh, I'm so mad.
That
but
was going to be my comment as well on the racism, Sarah, is the fact that I didn't like this book because of that a lot. That and the sexism, which means that it was done well, right?
Yeah.
For it to get to me like that, it means that it was done well. And it was very realistic. And the fact that Elma didn't think about it and then it would be there and that it recurred over and over and over again is the thing that's what it is. It's an inherent learned, thing that we might not necessarily recognize immediately, but someone of color or someone who is female would notice immediately because it's against them, right?
Yeah.
So it's that the reoccurrence of it and the gentle reminders of them trying to gently remind her that she is being racist,
Yeah.
or that is racism, or that they weren't included and she didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. That's like,
And I did like
Yeah.
that as the story went on, she did start to like not realize it straight away, but she did start to notice things like that.
Yeah,
Like
it was nice.
as she was getting, like as the story progressed and as she actually grew as a person, she actually started to notice that there weren't any black people there. And she even said to herself, would I have noticed that if I didn't know the people that I know now? Like if I hadn't flown with these girls, would I have noticed that they weren't being included right
and
now?
that's
No,
still
and she wouldn't
true
have.
to now as well.
Yeah.
All of that, you know,
Yeah.
that's why it annoyed me so much, and that's why I didn't like the book. It's not because the book wasn't good or that. And like I said, there are many things that I recognize that people in this group would like, but those two things and the fact that I don't like historical fiction really made me not like the book. And those two things, that they were the two things that I almost put the book down for. But that is not because it was written badly. It was probably more because it was written well.
Yeah, because it's more emotionally impacting.
Yeah. I particularly liked too that they didn't turn her in any point into the white savior mode. Like they very deliberately like, and that was one of the things that Hidden Figures did actually do poorly in a lot of respects. But in this case, even when and she did the right thing by offering to help and stuff, like that wasn't wrong, but she let it go when they said no, we're going to care about this.
I really liked that.
That was there was a bit where Myrtle fucking shut her down beautifully where she said, we have our own plans.
Yeah.
You know, when she got when she got the plane and she said, oh, well, do you need me to do anything? She's like, no, we have our own. And it turned out
just want to borrow the plane. We don't need you to do anything.
We don't need to do anything else. That's great. Thank you. We've got our own thing going on. And they did the flyer drop, which I was like, that is fucking brilliant. That was a brilliant move.
And I believe that's happened in history before.
Fantastic. And I love that. I also love that Myrtle shut her down. I actually really like not shut her down in a bad way, but it's just like, we got this. We got smart people who know how white people work.
People were helping the black people, and she's like, well, fine. If you white folk don't want to help us, then we'll do it all ourselves. And they
But the thing was, she wasn't saying no to be mean to her either. Like, she was like, no, we're good. You've got stuff that you need to do.
Yeah.
And you should do that.
You've given us what we need, but that's all.
And
thank you for your offer. We've got our own plan. We know this problem and how to solve it better than you do, so let us do that. And I just, as a PM,
and that moment when they got off the plane as well, that was so good. And the fact that even like she said they're the first getting off because they were the last to get on.
Oh, I know.
So I was like,
I was crying.
I didn't cry at work. I don't know what you're talking about.
And I think I appreciate all of those things like that, the sexism, the racism, and all of those sorts of things, because as much as I can understand some people don't appreciate the historical element of this, those things were the things that grounded it as being historical and not a fantasy story or something. It was like, this is based in reality of what the experience would be like.
I agree. And I think it's important because, and I get that it's very confronting and not everyone would enjoy reading it, but I think these kinds of novels are important because in the same way that Holocaust novels are important, because if we start sweeping shit under the rug and pretending that this sort of crap didn't happen, that
then we get in the same situation where we are right now.
Again.
We get in the same situation we are right now in America, where they're pretending stuff like this didn't happen, like in 2 world wars. So, exactly that. And I think that's, and just a caveat, that's why I think I'm so upset by some of the other stuff that happened, is because she dealt with this really, really well. And so when it came to a perfect character like Nathaniel being the most amazing man, even for a 21st century standard, I'm like, I've watched Mad Men. Like, there's lots of different men in that. Some are really great partners and some aren't, but they all have a bias, and he doesn't seem to have one. So that's why I'm a little bit like, So
Yeah, but he was apparently based on Ruth Bader Ginsburg's husband, who apparently was like that. So, but anyway, I was going to say, I thought it was interesting to mention at that point. Fuck.
Well,
I like rhetoric.
We spoke about that already, Mel.
Yeah.
The Jewish factor, that was the thing that was important. A lot of people were tweeting, a lot of Jewish people were tweeting around about the time this was coming out, that they were saying how important this book was for them, because there was a science fiction and fantasy story about a main Jewish character that wasn't set during the Holocaust, and how rare that was.
That's a very good point, because I don't think I've read very many books that had a main character who's Jewish.
Also, it's not New York Jewish.
Real
Sorry,
Yes.
Elizabeth.
So
Yeah.
there's not a lot
Say
of
that
like,
again.
real world religion. I haven't read a lot of real world books, so no matter what their religion, I haven't really like. It wouldn't have
about elf people a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Elizabeth.
Hey.
Can you say what
Sorry,
you said again?
Elizabeth.
Because I think that's important.
I said that it wasn't New York Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, any group of people is not a monolith. I have Jewish friends in Australia, and the Jewish culture here is quite different to the Jewish cultures in America.
Mm-hmm.
The one that gets exported most is New York Jewish.
Yeah,
I don't-
definitely.
I'd also
That's-
like to caveat that by someone who has Jewish background and Jewish culture and embraces those sides of themselves. Admittedly, not the not eating pork side. I do like the pork part. It is different everywhere you go, and I loved that it is. You know, you can be in one part of the city and it's different to another part of the city. And I did like that I got a little bit of a glimpse into what the Southern Jews are like what that was like at that time. And I really loved that. And I loved how they were embracing their Jewish side, but their Southern side. And
Yeah.
it was.
I definitely got that
Wonderful.
Southern vibe. It kind of reminded me of reading the Sookie Stackhouse books, that she had that same kind of thing, that because I haven't really read, apart from those two things, I really haven't read that much that's based in like Southern America, and like that whole, it's all about hospitality and being polite and about how you're perceived by other people and all of that kind of thing. And I was like, I found it really interesting, actually.
The only thing I've ever experienced was the Driving Miss Daisy movie. I felt that was the only thing that kind of, because it's from the South, it's about a Jewish woman. Set in the same time period, but
She's from the South as well. She would have more awareness of racism.
That was actually a Mitchie. I was a little bit surprised at that. I'm like, if you're from, I did actually agree with that. Like,
I would think
segregation.
actually being Jewish would probably mean that she would have less of a racist tendency, but she would still be
She'd
like
still
have
would have had
more
the
of an
segregation.
awareness
Yeah.
because of the.
I think part of it is that she spent a lot of time of her life on army bases as well. Like, she did say she moved a lot. And
I'd forgotten about that.
I'm not saying that shouldn't have occurred to her, but like, she did spend a lot of time moving and a lot of time on army bases, and the army bases would have predominantly been white, even though
especially in the parts of the base that she would have seen where her father was high up in the rank.
Anywhere there's officers, basically.
Yeah.
like where she was living would have been a lot of officer families, which would have predominantly been white, if not all white. And everywhere she would have gone, like, she would have gone to school with all white children. Like, it wouldn't have occurred, like, she wouldn't have really been exposed to
a very good point.
Like, just because of the way that she lived. Like, yes, she was still in the South, so maybe some of that would have rubbed off because she had obviously a family that weren't on the base, but a lot of her life seemed to be around being on the army base as well, like growing up. Like, a lot of the experience she talked about were being in planes with her dad and moving around a lot and like that sort of thing.
That's a good point.
I think the other thing to be very.
Sorry.
I was going to say the other thing to be very muchly aware of is that it's not just that she would have been hanging around with the officers. It's that at that time there was a complete rules against fraternization with non-officers, essentially. So it goes further than that.
It's not even just of that time, really.
No, it's not. It's still sort of in place.
And
in
the
a lot
fact
of
that she
respects.
was also in college so young, right?
Yes, well, and I think
So
she went
there's
to college
class
in the
there
north,
as well.
didn't she?
Yeah, I think so. Didn't she go to?
Did she go to Harvard?
I want to say
Something like that.
Harvard or Berkeley.
Berkeley.
Berkeley's in
California.
California, so I think she went to Harvard for some reason. I don't know why, but I feel like it was Harvard. And then she went.
There's that class segregation there as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Elizabeth, you were going to say something before, and then we did our usual thing and cut you
Oh,
off. So.
it was just not a super relevant thought, but I was just thinking about Southern tradition of hospitality, but the Jewish tradition also has a tradition of hospitality, yeah?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was doubled up. That was one of the things she sort of talked about, I thought.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then there's a doubling down of that post-Holocaust about welcoming people into your home, because people couldn't welcome people into the home from Europe, at least. It was, yeah. Sorry, I've just been listening to catching up on Harry Potter and the Sacred Text. Anyone else listen to that?
Yes.
No, but I've been thinking about doing that.
Oh God, Kirsten, you would love it. It's so good. But one of the hosts is Jewish, and she had grandparents who went through the Holocaust, so it's had a big impact on her life. So she often refers to that, and it's something she actually talked about, this hospitality side of stuff, and about how the Holocaust has actually changed and affected and doubled down on many of the values within Jewish culture for her family. So it was just a reflection I'd had with this as well. Anyway, you'd love it. You should listen to it.
I know, there's so many things I should listen to.
I know. But the great thing is, it's the book, so you can dip in and out when you want. It's so good. It's so good.
It's because I do so many audiobooks now. Like, if I'm listening to something, it's usually an audio. And, like, I'm so far behind on my podcasts. I actually deleted a few podcasts because I was just like...
Yeah, I know.
Just to put on my host Judy hat.
I was about to come back to it for you.
Yeah. I realise we've been going for about 2 hours now,
damn.
so that's normally about when we start to
Digress.
sort of wrap up the official stuff.
Yeah.
Anything else that you want to talk about? You got a couple of more points?
I just wanted to finish up the sexism or racism. That's my Martini's talking, to say that it's hard to hear it, but then when you read up about the space program and women and racism, that is actually completely mortifying to realize that women weren't part of the space program until the 1980s, and African American women didn't take part till the 1990s. So that is actually how disgusting humans have been in our behavior towards people who've been treated as other. So as much as I'm like, oh, about this, I'm like going, wow, in some ways, this is kind of a progressiveness, like they're going to have to move forward a hell of a lot faster than we did. And I think, Matt, you mentioned something on another chat, that the fact that the space, like the space walking, maybe it's the moon suits, maybe it's the space walk suits, like they were built for men and not for women. So
like the
plumbing
plumbing
issue.
The plumbing of it, yeah.
Yeah, was that you, Kirsten? It was like going.
No, but it's probably
for 5 hours.
It's probably something Matt has told me about. That it's like, they had like a tube that men could pee into, but doesn't kind of work for women.
Little cup with a tube.
They didn't have that pee-wee thing that women, like people take festivals that you tuck into your pants, and then supposedly it doesn't work very well anyway. But
great for guys. Let's just think of the guys.
I will say Pee-wees actually work very well.
Really?
Do they?
Well, that's good to know. Not that I'm planning on going camping anytime soon because I'm a hotel.
I want to use one. That'd be cool.
But it's
I'd
nice
be
to know that it's an option.
Shh. I'm peeing. Any concentration? Okay, we're good.
That's actually the hard part, is convincing yourself it's okay to go while you're standing.
Right.
Not doing the auto squat thing.
Yeah. It's like, no one can talk to me.
I was going to say,
really concentrate.
By the way, I was going to say, one of the things that's actually really important to know in terms of the historical element of this book and what actually happened was there was actually a fully trained females team right at the beginning, but they decided to go all men, because the reason there was a female trained team was because the theory was they would use up less oxygen because they're smaller and all of these sorts of things. But because it was not okay for the visual element. They had to go men. But yeah,
I can remember as a young person, I wouldn't say child, maybe young teenager, but being told that women couldn't be astronauts because they would get like something to do with your vagina would turn inside out.
Bipolar.
No, but seriously, I remember hearing this as a young person, like oldish child, young, or like tween kind of age, that women couldn't be fighter pilots or astronauts because something to do with the pressure would like suck you out through your vagina.
From
I'm
who
serious.
did you hear this?
I don't know.
I'm not laughing because I think that you weren't told this. I'm laughing because I believe that you were told this.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, this was the thing that I was told as a young person, was that this is the reason why women couldn't be pilots.
Yeah,
and now
was
that I look back on it, I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But
like
it doesn't surprise me.
You this, or
No, like I don't know. I can't remember who said it, but like.
Okay, so I have a couple. So anyway, I just wanted to, and then Matt, this is one of the other things I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about some of the other female characters. I want to talk about Betty.
Yeah.
Who's Betty again?
She's the one who's the reporter. She gets in because she cuts a deal.
I literally remember none of the other characters.
The one that throws her under the bus. No, there's Helen, who's the
Helen, who I kind of love. I kind of love.
She's a chess player.
Helen,
very good chess.
And I loved Helen. And I also want to talk about, is it Ida? And I can't remember the other person's name, who are from the African American flight club who come over. I can't remember Ida.
I really like them. I can't remember names.
Yeah, but Ida, I remember Ida, but I can't remember the other one because there's names. And I listened, and I didn't see. And I normally, if I read and see, and I think, but I listened, and there's a lot of.
She was the one that was like the leader, and she was like when what's her face? See, I can't even remember the main character's name. When she did the spiral thing, when she was doing the when they were doing the air show and she engines died and she spiraled down and shit, and all the reporters were around, and then that other chick was she had everything under control, but nobody was kind of noticing that she had everything under control and that she was anyway, I don't even remember what I was saying. I've had those videos.
All good. Anyway, that was the only thought I had, Matt, was just to talk about the other female characters.
Sure. Let's do that.
Because I thought Betty was really interesting because she was such an instigating incident, and how we felt like, and I don't think Naomi's gotten to this bit yet because there's a big blue in the bathroom. There's the bathroom blue.
No, I haven't gotten to that. That's fine.
Which I thought is really good. And then there's Helen, who we all love. Well, I love. And then Ida, and I did enjoy that, but at the African American, I guess it was building onto that, at the African American Flight Club, where two of them just went like, I don't have time to get on you, because I totally got it. It was like, this must be like a politician coming around looking into your votes, right?
Yeah.
Like,
they're like,
vote for me. I'm like, fuck off. What have you ever done for me, bitch? Like, I totally got it. I'm like, I'd probably be that person going, I don't have time for your shit. I totally
You're just here for the publicity. Like,
you're
here because you need our planes and you didn't give a shit about us before, and now you want something and you're here.
Actually, completely and utterly true. So I thought I was actually, again, in the racism and sexism vein of plotline, I was grateful that was put in, because there are people who are angry, and quite rightly so, about feeling like they're being used over and over again. So I was glad to see that there. But anyway, that was what I thought. We could talk about Betty because she's kind of a big part. Oh, and Nicole. Nicole was the senator's wife.
Yeah.
She's the one that at the Milltown.
She took her to see the.
She's awesome.
Yeah, me and Nicole, I feel we're soulmates. We're like, get one another. So how do you want to run the match? Do you want to have a break, or do you want to come back, or do you want to carry on? What do you want to do?
I think we may as well just carry on.
All right.
And then, so let's go. Let's do it.
Betty.
Betty.
how do we feel? Do we feel she was set up for a hard job? Do we feel that Elma was too hard on her? Do we feel that, how do we feel about the whole bathroom blue at the end? Like, how?
I can't even remember that.
Okay, so the bathroom blue at the end, Elma was basically going to her because she needed something from Betty, which was like, don't go to the press with my Milltown story.
Yeah.
And,
And I'll get you
yeah.
in.
And I'll, all this kind of stuff. And I think I made a note here what Betty did, which was basically making a deal to do what she she made a deal for her journalism and for her air fighter career. But she kept making these kind of sell out other people things. My question was, her ambition at the time compared to others, is it what a man would do? Is it that we find it hard to deal with because she was a woman at the time?
I think it's just my thing of going, oh God, journalists. I was just like, oh God, why would you even want this as a career? And maybe that's my
I'd like to caveat that by saying Daily Mail style journalists.
Yeah, like
not all.
It did feel like a betrayal to me, that's a really interesting question. Like, would I feel like it was that much of a betrayal if it had been a man? Because maybe she probably wouldn't have confided in that person if it had been a man, and so she had this kind of in being a woman that she wouldn't have as a man. I don't know, but I did. God, I hated it.
It's unethical. Like, I don't care if it's a man or a woman, it's still unethical.
I agree.
Particularly of, like, she sprang the reporters on Elma when they were going out. Like, this was prior to, like, her cutting a deal to get on the space team. Like, but before that, she was, like, ambushing Elma with reporters. I'm like, that's not okay.
Yeah.
And it's not okay whether you have an anxiety condition or not.
Yeah,
I'd like to point out. It's like nobody wants to be sprung with that. You think you're going along to have a nice chat with some with a community group, with the children from a community group who want to hear and be excited, and suddenly there's a whole lot of like reporters rushing at you. If it was 21st century situation, I'm sure everyone would feel the same way. Like, this is not what I thought I was doing. Like, I'm here to do my bit for community, not here to do my bit for PR. So
But I do see what you're saying. Like, I feel like maybe we do judge her a little bit more harshly because she's a woman with ambition, or because she like used like the confidences between two women to kind of get ahead. Like, I think that's it.
So here's the second question building from that. Do you think it was right for Elma to hold the grudge for as long as she did? Or do you think it was also like it was up to Betty to reach out and she never really did? Or did she? I don't actually remember.
I kind of, it felt to me a lot like how I feel about people who bullied me in high school. Like this whole thing of I feel like I should forgive and forget because that would be the mature thing to do, but there's an emotional part of me that can't do that. And and because she had that trust in
I think
her,
there's a few
and then
of us
she felt like she'd betrayed a trust. Yeah,
we've all got a few non-accepted
Scars.
Facebook friend requests from people.
Yeah. Oh my God, Matt, you just hit the nail on the head. And exactly that. Like, we know that they probably had their own reasons, but it's still hard for us to stomach them. And we're like going, I know that you probably had X, Y, and Z going on, and that you had to feel power or validation for doing this to me, but I still don't feel comfortable with forgiving you for becoming the bigger person. Yeah, I totally get that, Kirsten.
Like I can objectively say that it would probably be better for me as a person to just forgive and accept that they had their reasons for what they did.
And they were teenagers as well, blah, blah, blah.
But because of the emotional impact of it, I'm not as capable of doing that as I would like to be.
Yes.
And I can imagine that it would be the same thing. Like, she felt like it was a betrayal of her trust. And even if she thinks that, okay, this is a woman with ambition in the same way that I have ambition, and this is her way of manifesting that ambition. Like, I want to be a journalist that's respected, and here's how I do it.
Yeah. Something
She's
that
still
just
portrayed
occurred
as
to me.
tough.
Something that just occurred to me. She talks about her grandparents from, or was it her parents from the Holocaust? And I may be confusing my stories right now, but was somebody betrayed? And I wonder if that was linking back. Did that come up, or am I being confused?
No,
I'm being confused. I'm sorry.
her
I'm
family's
sorry.
been in America since the 1700s or something along those lines. Like, they've been there for years.
Okay, cool. I'm getting confused in my stories. I'm sorry. As I said, I've listened to a lot of stuff recently, and sometimes you get the melding of stories, and you go,
Yeah.
this person's story is related because there's this, but then it must be this. And, apologies. The thing that annoyed me about Betty, like, I totally got it, and I kind of was like, okay, it's fine, but the holding on to the letter.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do we believe that Betty didn't know once she opened it what she had?
She opened it.
I know, right? But did she not realize because it was in a different name? Like, I'm kind of like, yeah, that was kind of the bit for me. I'm like, I can forgive you that, but this part, like, I know you wanted to try and build a bridge, but this was just.
I think there's the journalist kicks in and goes, "This is a thing I could."
I know, but it was more personal than that to me. That actually was the bit that was unforgivable, was withholding mail to try and get, like, so you could have a conversation around forgiveness. That was the bit I found hard, personally.
Yeah. I felt like she's like some of those people who you meet in life, and some people are just more willing to sort of manipulate situations, and it doesn't necessarily make them evil or anything, but they're just a little bit more willing to take advantage of circumstances for their benefit.
We're gonna go to bed.
Oh, good night,
I was
guys.
just going to ask before if Karina had actually gone to sleep on your shoulder just then.
Just a little bit.
Bye, guys. It was so nice to meet you.
Feel better, Karina.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You take care.
I'd better head off too, but just before I go, I just wanted to drop a thread in the chat. This is from Mary Robinette Cowell about the spacewalk suits.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
So that's there, so you can have a look at. She lays out some of the history and why they cancelled the spacewalk, the women's spacewalk, recently.
Yeah.
Let's talk about spacesuits specifically. Exco Vehicle Limited. I can't even say
EVA.
it. Thank you. EVA, I love it.
Is this the one where they had large suits, but they didn't?
Yeah, this
It was
is
for
very
the first
recent one.
female spacewalk, which was supposed to take place earlier this year.
I'm sorry, I'm finding it a little bit confusing. Maybe it's my cocktails, but I'm like, okay, so there's
no small suits is the main.
Yeah, it didn't fit.
All the
Small and
ones
extra
on
large
the
suits were cut.
ISS, they were designed 40 years ago with a 15 shelf life. 18 of the original.
11 of the 18.
Okay. Only 4 are on the ISS. Does that mean only 4 are available of those original 11? The others are elsewhere, like on the ground or whatever.
They wouldn't have every one up
So
there.
they've only got 4 on the ISS altogether. Is that what that says?
That's correct.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Sorry. I'm a stickler for data points. So I'm like going like that to me is also like, well.
There's normally only 2 or 3 astronauts on board at any time
that's
anyway.
right. Okay. So there are 4 of the original 18.
Yeah.
And they were all designed 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Which makes it what, 1970? Because I'm old. So it kind of works in with me. And they were supposed to have a 15, but that doesn't say they were designed, but when were they manufactured? Sorry. See, I'm the person who asked those caveats. Like, okay, great. So they were designed, but when were they manufactured?
Good question. Don't know.
Because you can actually make allowances for manufacturing. But that's interesting. Thank you very much for sharing, Elizabeth.
That's all right. It goes on.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, it's
oh,
there.
I missed that.
It
Okay.
goes on. And
Oh,
on
there's
and
there's
on
more
and on.
data. Fantastic.
On and on
Fantastic.
and
There's
on
more
and
data.
on.
There's
Yeah.
more data.
I'm still
I
reading.
just
I'm
read
not.
the first part. I read the first part because I don't go on Twitter because, you know, it's a stressful place for someone like me to be.
Yeah, I can't Twitter.
Wow, 27 significant soup failures. To me, significant is not good as
That's
a
pretty
PM.
fucking terrifying.
Yeah, me too. I'm kind of like,
In 40 years, that's a pretty.
Terraforming Luke. Oh my god, I can terraform Mars. Sorry.
What about what? It doesn't have a magnetosphere. How are you getting around that, G?
I've
I
got
want to know.
domes.
Oh, but that's
here
not
we go.
terraforming then.
They
If
were
there's
budget
domes.
cuts. They
That's
were
true.
cut.
It's just
Half of
colonizing.
Earth on Mars. This one has
we're
a
back.
high
It's all
comfort.
system
The
work.
inhabitants are very sane, so it's all good. Lots of good
I need to
things.
feel.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I don't want to read on
Elevator.
because it's giving me. It's sorry, I can see spoilers. Yeah, fair call, Elizabeth, and good points. And also, yeah, that's like not good. Like we've been having astronauts in space for 30 years, and like I know we have budget cuts, but this is ridiculous. Like, sorry, women in space for 30 years. Like this is. I know they're expensive, but so is making sure that our technology works up there. And I'd be sitting there doing a risk versus, you know, like what is the sunk cost versus the opportunity cost. And the fact is that if you had a suit that fitted, possibly they could get the work done faster and more, you know, more efficiently and productively. Sorry.
Which is definitely what they basically said in all of that. But what's recently been announced, which I think is just to pacify after all of that happened, was they've just announced that there's going to be the first female who walks on the moon.
Yes.
They're planning a mission for that. So I think
as long as they're American.
Yes. Well, NASA is an American agency.
It's true, but they do have a lot of different people working for them. I'd like to point out that they have one who played the guitar, and he's Canadian.
He is Canadian.
Yes.
Which is almost American.
No. I think they would vehemently disagree with you on that.
Americans wouldn't.
That's kind of like saying someone from New Zealand is almost Australian, right?
Exactly.
Hey, look, I can't vote until I can, you know.
I know, that's why I'm saying. It's not the same thing.
No, Elizabeth, thank you for sharing that.
No, Elizabeth.
So
are we done with the book, by the way? Should I tell?
I just wanted, sorry, no, I have more Betty discussions. And then final scene, and G's still here, I think. Did you throw the book against the wall figuratively because you were doing the audio cast?
I did not realize it was finishing until it was done. I was playing my game at the same time.
Oh, you were done. Oh, that's right. I can't remember. Sorry, you did say you were done. That's why I was remember shock horror going, she finished it. I thought she did a table flip on it.
Yeah, I was not going to be phased if I didn't finish it in time for this, but I did. So.
I think you were asking Matt for like, oh, good, I don't have to be done. I don't care about spoilers.
Yeah, no, I wasn't phased.
So the Betty thing, and then the final thing where she says to, you know, like basically the deal they're having to cut in a bathroom. And I actually understand what Elma's trying to do, where she actually goes, okay, what is your key motivation? What is my key motivation? Is my key motivation, you know, I want to be in space. Your key motivation is, I'm guessing you want to have a journalist career. And it turns out she guesses that wrong. So I do get her going, you've just called me an incredibly offensive thing. How do I go from that when I'm actually trying to get a job done, which is not to react? I need to temper myself. I don't quite know where Betty came with it, though. Like, I don't know why she reacted in that way. That was the only bit, other than the fact that maybe Elma had been kind of the I don't know what to call it, the pseudo lead of the ladies, and so that like everyone followed her example about ignoring Betty. I don't know. Like, so Betty was like, well, this has been completely unpleasant, because that's certainly the feel that I got in the bathroom, because everybody was like, you know, like two of them were blocking the door like bouncers. And, you know, and Nicole was like, well, I'm here to be, you know, I'm here on this side. I don't know what people thought about that.
wasn't really listening to the
It's
book.
all
That
good.
is
It's all
the
good.
book.
I did think, though, that the discussion was very interesting where they said, everybody is here not necessarily on their own merits. And I don't know if that had been really that Elmer had really had a realization of that she was the lady astronaut. Like Nicole was like, I'm a senator's wife. That's why I'm here, like we're not here just because we are academically right for this, but because we have other merits. And maybe I'm being politically incorrect, but I don't think that's a wrong assessment, because part of the life of being an astronaut is you actually have to be able to do other things. Like you have to be able to give talks and stand in public, and for that particular role at the time, less so now, right? Because it's a bit like, we need to go and launch a satellite. Go, like it's a bit more of a perfunctory role, whereas back then it was much more of a PR role. So I don't think that's necessarily wrong. But I still think they had great people going in, if that makes sense. Like I think they still had some really good choices. Like Nicole fucking holds her own. I loved her. And Betty is a journalist, but she didn't seem to be strong on the academic. I don't know where I'm going with this. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now. Talk, people. I'll mute myself.
You don't need to mute yourself.
Stop it. Sarah.
That mean we're done then?
Are we done? Is there anything else anybody wants to raise?
I was looking for feedback on my question.
I didn't really understand the question.
Fair enough. Let's move on.
I also can't really remember the scene. I read this last year.
No, I don't remember it that clearly either. I'm glad
Really?
it's not just me. Like the bathroom scene, like
I
I
thought that was
vaguely remember.
quite a
It might be
standout
because it
scene.
really, to me, it was a standout scene. I listened to it twice. I listened to the
I
whole bit
remember it
before twice.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Details for talking about it are hard sometimes.
So the bit beforehand where she says she consents that Nicole's about to throw herself under a bus, and she goes about the Milltown. Oh, for God's sake, I take it. Because she won't let Nicole sell herself out. That was a standout scene with Stetson going, oh my God, you just like every currency I had, you just put it out on the table, right?
Yeah.
And that was a stellar scene. And I loved how the male astronauts, and there was one particular male astronaut who I've forgotten, maybe it was Bouchon, I can't remember, but he said, that also might just be a name of my colleague who has a similar name, said, look, we know you don't like it and we know why. Which is basically, you two have a history. That's not our fucking history. Like, I really liked that. That was well written. And I loved how he said, like, we know you don't like it and we know why, which is basically like, you think that she shouldn't have called you out, blah, blah, blah. You've got a history. But she's fucking good at her job. You weren't here when we had a crisis, and she was great. And I want her in space with me, right? And I thought it was awesome. It was just a standout. They were all happy, and he was just doing his usual, I am on my revenge thing. I'm here with my dragon. I'm gonna barbecue everybody. So it's this is my thing, and I love that. And then when the whole Milltown thing came up, like he was like, well, fuck, here's my, like, it was watching Game of Poker. It was a really well written scene to me. And
I really enjoyed that too. I liked the way she was like, right, I'm just going to tell everyone then. If you're going to try and blackmail with me,
Get in first.
blackmail me with this
and
information.
I actually think that is the best strategy. I'm like, you've got nothing left to lose. Like, just put your cards out on the table. You're in, like, if you'll notice who has it. And what happens, someone says, well, I came down, the doctor wanted to prescribe me Milltown. So are you saying, like, I didn't take because I thought I wouldn't be, because of that. But, like, you had a flight surgeon going to prescribe it. So what the fuck, guys? Why are we going to flight surgeon wants to prescribe it if it's not acceptable? I just thought it was a really good scene. And then there was the bathroom scene, which I thought was also strong. And that's why I'm very annoyed with the ending, because we went straight from a bathroom scene into space.
I did feel like that it happened very suddenly. And I remember, when Matt was reading it, because I read it first, and he was like talking about, I just wish there was more space and rockets and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't happen until the end. But
I can't.
Yeah.
I liked her little thing about not little, like it was a important thing, like her thing of like not being able to do the acronyms, like not being able to remember the acronyms, and I'm like, I love the acronyms.
No, see, I was the opposite. I was like, I totally get that because
I totally get it.
fucking acronyms. My job is full of acronyms, and I'm still
Yeah.
like, what are we
Yep.
supposed to call it?
Yeah.
ESL now?
Yeah.
Like ESL is not ESL.
Oh, I
anymore.
can't
It's some
remember.
other
But
fucking
English
thing.
is a second language or not?
Yeah, no,
But
it used to be
Yeah,
English
not
as a second
anymore.
language, and now it's English
Lang-
as a secondary language or dialect.
Mhm.
No,
Yeah,
it's not secondary language. It's something
it's
else.
really
EALD.
confusing.
It's EALD. English as an additional language or dialect. That's
Oh,
what it's
okay.
now.
And
It's
I
not
don't even-
ESL anymore.
Yeah.
And every time
That's
someone
fine.
says EALD, I'm like, what? What is it again? I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, I had
Yeah.
the same thing, and the reason I appreciated that, Kirsten, the same thing is I just started a job like a month before I started listening to this, and it's full of acronyms that I used elsewhere in different ways. So I've had to deal with the whole thing. They keep calling. So we do small business loans, and they have a thing. They keep calling about LMS. Where
It's a
I
learning
work
management
now.
system.
That's what I said. That's
Yeah.
what I said. It's not a learning management system. It's the freaking loan management system.
Oh my God, no.
Right? Because I'm sitting there talking to people. We're talking about we have to figure the LMS and we have this in the LMS. And I'm going, okay, yeah, we're going to configure the learning management system so everyone knows what's going on and people can get up to date. But that's not what it is. And I'm like, oh. So I actually really felt for Elma because I'm like going, there is nothing like, and for her, she's been in academia. Oh, I don't know what she's been doing. She's been working for the government. So she's only had to deal with so many. I'm like, Elma, try living in the 21st century. You change jobs well, maybe not for you, Matt, but like every couple of years where you have to learn a whole other section of acronyms. So you're like going, and what was there? Is this? I've had that happen. Like, I'm like going LMS, and then LOC. I'm like, oh my God. Like, they're all the same, but now they mean something different. Like, at least you have that.
I should say I like space acronyms particularly.
Yeah. But and she was right about the whole acronyms about like there's an acronym for an acronym because I was like, wait till you encounter laser.
Yeah.
It's an acronym with a word, but there's an acronym. I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, I absolutely appreciated
I
that.
can never remember what the acronym LASER is.
Light amplification through stimulated emission of radiation.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done, Matt.
Thank you. I knew the first word was light, and I was like, I'm fucked. I don't know what
It's
the
got
rest
something
of
to
it
do with light.
Like,
I would like to point out that I've congratulated you without knowing for sure that you were actually correct.
No, we could totally believe you if you just
I
made that shit
I
up.
just congratulated him on rolling it off his tongue so fast, and then I just believed it because confidence is 90% of
I
it.
know,
That's a confidence thing, right?
I know what SCUBA stands for.
Something
Yeah.
breathing apparatus, underwater
It's a
breathing apparatus.
self-contained
That's
underwater breathing apparatus.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Also very good. Well done. Well done.
Yeah, I knew that one.
I can't remember acronyms like that because there's too fucking many of them at work because not only do I have all of the education ones, but I've got the public system and the Catholic system and the private system, and then I've got fucking Apple.
Yeah.
Who are happy.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason I was like, Elma York, you have nothing to bitch and complain about. I feel for you, but seriously, you do not live in the 21st century. Welcome to our world.
Oh, anyway.
I was like, it was funny. The other thing that I thought, this is just a final note. Sorry, these are my notes.
That's all right.
Notes. Is that the stars were hidden, and I didn't know that until she went to the bar mitzvah. So she talked to her brother, and she said, "Do you remember what the stars look like?"
Kids see stars
And the kids, and I didn't know that, and I don't know if anyone else did. And I was like,
I didn't
"Did she talk
notice it,
about that?" Because to me, like, not just not seeing the stars, but not seeing a blue sky is a big fucking deal. And if I had to live, like, I would have been writing about that or complaining about that and missing that. She never talked about it. I'm like, am I missing something? And I just wondered if you guys thought that, because I'm like it's not just the stars, it's the blue.
Is that a cultural thing? Is that an Australian, New Zealand thing? Like, we've got this climate where we have this expansive blue sky. Like, I can imagine if I lived in somewhere like England where
But I
it's
lived
cloudy
in England for
99% of the
But I
time.
lived in England for 3.5 years, and yeah, the winters were shit because it was like living in a perpetual sunset. But you had these amazing blue and sunsets that were like the blue skies and the sunsets that would come through, and it was spectacular. I still felt like I could see it. Like if it like there's
it
a
would
sad
totally
part.
make me depressed if I
It
could
would
never
make
see
me
the
very
sky.
depressed not seeing a silver sky the entire time. To me, I don't know if anyone else thought, and I don't know if that's like it got missed by the author, but to me, I'm like, that's a big fucking deal.
It would be very claustrophobic for me, I think.
Yeah.
Not having,
to see a different, like I know for new people, like new people,
yeah,
even the new
first.
kids, it would be way it's a new way things are. You wouldn't know any different, which is what they talk about. But to me, not seeing it would be incredibly upsetting.
Mel,
and I wouldn't miss it. Mel, what have you discovered?
Grumpy Pig Cat has died.
Oh, Grumpy. Oh. Okay,
well, we've officially gone off topic, so
okay, we can stop. We can stop now. Anyway,
we want to talk about Grumpy Cat. So let's
talk about Grumpy Cat.
Let's shut this one down.
Okay, we must have an RIP session. So anybody who's watching out there, thank you for joining us.
And maybe you'll join us for this one in the future.
I know with the half the people have left now, but are we all intending to continue on reading? Because I definitely am.
Oh yeah, totally. I just wanted to share that it's not.
I think,
but it was great.
I think our main person who's probably at risk of not continuing is G.
I was just waiting for G's response.
I don't know. Maybe I just started another Brandon Sanderson, so I might just.
Which one?
Which one? You go?
Like 500
before we go,
hours.
Bye, anybody. Bye.
I thought we turned it off by now.
I want to know